Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 561, Charging Through a Deadly Past, 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Flowing fire, yin mist, undying blood calamity, it was as if countless meteors were burning in the night sky, trailing long, blazing beams of light. They carved long, blazing arcs through the heavens, raining down in swarms to slam into the earth. The expeditionary force of the Jade Capital faction was ambushed on their return journey. The undying blood calamity, that colossal entity. Its main body had appeared in the enclave and had already engaged in a fierce battle with Jade Capital. Its aura could no longer be concealed. As if summoned by an unseen force, the scattered fragments across the land emerged one after another, converging toward the main body. The two factions were sworn enemies. Upon meeting, a violent clash was inevitable. The golden ranking fragments, dense as a swarm of shooting stars, collided with the giant fragments shrouded in yin mist. The impact unleashed a torrent of blood-red light and malevolent aura, erupting in a fierce explosion. In an instant, the night sky was ablaze with brilliant flames and boiling malevolence. Across the firmament, it was as if countless meteors were converging in this realm. Some collided head-on, accompanied by roars of fury and the killing intent of battle. However, the timing was critical. The giant fragments were desperate to reach the enclave and merge with the source of the undying blood calamity as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the Jade Capital forces, having just retreated from the battlefield, were mentally and physically exhausted. If given a choice, they would never have wished to endure another life-and-death blood battle. The golden ranking fragment spoke. Now, you only need to consider yourselves, to fight for yourselves. You bear no burdens. Just find a way to survive. It told everyone that the expeditionary force had completed its mission and had done its best. Now, the most important thing was to stay alive. Therefore, when most fragments met, they only had brief contact. With a few splatters of blood and some of the yin mist being torn apart, the two sides passed each other by. Though they were mortal enemies, it was rare for them not to fight to the death on a large scale. But this did not mean that the encounter had become completely peaceful. When some golden ranking fragments and giant fragments met in a narrow path with no way to avoid each other and collided fiercely, it was truly tragic, and a terrifying clash ensued. Qin Ming's eyes shone like golden lanterns. The exotic metal blade in his right hand, as white as jade, was incredibly handy. When he slashed at the distorted faces in the yin mist, it actually had a miraculous effect. No wonder they said that jade iron was rare and exotic metal was priceless. These materials were born to counter spirits and monsters, as well as all kinds of incomprehensible and mysterious phenomena. Standing on the golden ranking fragment, Qin Ming couldn't avoid colliding with some giant fragments. He could only swing his blade, and the brilliant blade light cut through the pitch-black night. Ah! Within the yin mist, the voices of men, women, and children merged into a single, distorted chorus. Their faces were contorted and hideous, emitting a cacophony of piercing and terrifying screams. One by one, the blurry faces shattered under the exotic metal blade, dissipating like ice crystals falling onto a red-hot stove, hissing and vanishing instantly. Qin Ming had just severed 5 heads. As his blade sliced through the 6th, he felt a distinct resistance. It felt like flesh and blood, far more substantial than the yin mist. The creature spurted black blood before exploding into a cloud of dark mist, but its face and form had been strikingly lifelike. Qin Ming froze. There are special monsters in this yin mist, he realized. They're incredibly realistic, like living beings of flesh and blood. Beside him, Tang Yusheng was also fighting, unleashing the Yuanxi Yushu Primordial Jade Void Seal, the 7 arrows of the Big Dipper, and the Golden Palace Chains, all powerful techniques from the Jade Capital's inheritance. Kill! Bai Meng roared, his voice booming. Though he was fighting as well, he seemed lackluster compared to the two standing beside him, his lower cultivation realm making him pale in comparison. No matter where they were, young men and women capable of slaying grandmasters were considered exceptionally gifted. Qin Ming, Tang Yusheng, and their companion passed through the undying blood calamity fragment in this region without engaging in a prolonged blood battle. Both sides were simply trying to move forward. Soon, they encountered the second giant fragment. Within the slightly larger yin mist, more distinct faces emerged, radiating an increasingly dangerous aura. Clang! As the two sides collided, a brilliant sword light erupted from the giant colossal entity fragment, incredibly sharp and fierce. Zheng. The golden palace chains unleashed by Tang Yusheng were actually severed by the sword light. She immediately unleashed her trump card. Within her inner world, the 9 great deities merged with her, becoming one. Dao patterns flowed across her fair skin, and the feathered light rain boiled around her. Only by unleashing her peak combat power did she shatter the sword light and obliterate the figure within. 5 rapid, shrill shrieks rang out from within that massive fragment. Soon, a massive wave of yin mist swept in. Qinming unleashed his heaven-severing blade intent, his blade aura surging like a river and sea, wave after wave of brilliant blade light sweeping forward. Among the ordinary twisted faces in the yin mist, a blood-red figure appeared, startlingly real, with disheveled hair. It actually blocked his blade with its bare hands. Clang! Clang! Qinming swung his blade repeatedly until he obliterated the creature. But he sensed something wrong. The 5 rapid bursts of mental resonance echoed, like the shrieks of vengeful spirits transmitting a signal. Sure enough, 2 more fragments of the colossal object came hurtling toward them. Qinming and Tang Yusheng realized the pattern. The more lifelike monsters they slew and the more outstanding their performance, the more likely they were to be targeted, as if they had been marked. The only stroke of luck was that only smaller fragments were drifting into their immediate vicinity. The larger ones had either plunged into the heavenly chasm, pursuing the undying blood calamity's source, or were charging toward the larger golden ranking fragments. Driven by instinct, they were also choosing opponents of a similar scale. A brutal scene unfolded nearby. A large golden ranking fragment collided repeatedly with several larger giant fragments, each impact erupting in a violent explosion. An earth immortal was left bleeding profusely. He had pierced through the yin mist and torn apart several terrifying shadows, but ultimately, he was gravely injured himself. More large fragments were now converging on his position. PFF'd. The earth immortal's body was pierced through. From within a special cloud of mist, a rare silver light emanated as a withered yet terrifyingly real hand reached out, tearing through the 7th realm expert's abdomen. It was a brutal clash, the combatants were locked in a deadly struggle. Amidst the spray of the earth immortal's vivid, tragic blood, the 7th realm expert's body was torn apart. However, the withered monster within the silver glowing yin mist also shattered. Soon, 2 more special fragments of yin mist rushed forward, engulfing the earth immortal whose body was already covered in cracks. Amidst the blood mist, his pure yang consciousness boiled before exploding with a thunderous boom. The earth immortal perished, his physical body shattered. His pure yang consciousness escaped for a short distance before being covered by several fragments of yin mist, unable to flee. The sight of an earth immortal dying in battle was truly chilling. A 7 convergence realm cultivator warned, quickly, leave. Don't get bogged down, or you'll be marked. If they only had brief contact, both sides would likely suffer minor injuries, and most people chose to simply brush past each other. But if they killed the creatures within the yin mist, creatures that were almost flesh and blood, they would be marked with a special imprint, drawing the retaliation of their companions from all directions. Qinming and Tang Yusheng's hearts sank. In just this short time, they had already killed several of these special lifeforms. It was clear they had been targeted. The only thing that offered them some relief was that only small fragments of yin mist were rushing toward them. We need to get out of here, fast. This location was special, near the exit of the heavenly abyss, a mandatory passage for both sides. The heavenly chasm, dark as an abyss, was part of the most primordial mist gate, connecting the enclave and the territories under Jade Capital's influence. The monsters the earth immortals killed all shrieked 7 times before death. Are they calling for help from the 7th realm? The monsters we killed all let out 5 shrill cries. Are they sending a message? Has the 5th realm aggregate marked us? Qinming and Tang Yusheng realized the truth. Their own power levels were marked as Grandmaster. In this netherworld, many golden ranking fragments streaked past, their radiant light fading into the distance. Some were lucky enough to escape, while others were less fortunate, facing repeated ambushes. Not only did earth immortals fall in battle, but 6th realm ancestors and even ordinary young cultivators perished. The area near the heavenly chasm was chaotic. Many had successfully departed without even needing to fight, but some were less fortunate, becoming bogged down in the mire after a single blood battle. Over 80% of the forces had already broken through, but there were always those unfavored by heaven who failed to escape immediately, trapped in a desperate struggle for survival. Everyone on the journey home was exhausted. If they fell into the heavenly chasm, even an earth immortal would face certain death. The primordial qi and Xuanhuan primordial yellow qi they had obtained were too meager to save them. Qinming's heart grew heavy. He worried about his acquaintances. The faces of Yu Zhensheng, Meng Xinghai, and Li Qingyan flashed before his eyes. While only 10 to 20% of the group had been unlucky enough to be held back, the mere thought that those he cared about might be among them was too terrible to contemplate. Qinming gazed into the distance, searching anxiously, terrified that his old friends might have met with disaster. Bai Meng's breathing was heavy, his tension palpable. Sister, brother Ming, unleash everything. We have to fight our way out of the heavenly chasm first. The special monsters nearby are increasing in number, and they've broken free from the yin mist, charging straight at us. Qin nodded. The inner vision heaven-cleaving axe, the nine-colored sword qi, and the snow-bright blade light all erupted in succession. They were like men sinking in a swamp, nearly submerged. Even though they were constantly being marked by the enemy's tracking sigils, they had no choice but to unleash their full power and fight their way out using their strongest techniques. Tang Yusheng even unleashed her forbidden domain technique, myriad manifestations. Around her, golden divine lotuses bloomed in vast fields. She was lifted by celestial mist as the world transformed. Meteors, divine cities, ancient temples, and golden crows, all manner of scenery appeared, crashing forward like an unstoppable tide. Slay! Bai Meng roared. Beneath their feet, the golden ranking fragment dimmed but still supported them, allowing the three to charge and slash wildly, darting through gaps in the yin mist in a desperate attempt to break free. This was an exceptionally brutal battle. Qinming and Tang Yusheng had shattered countless fragments of yin mist, their spirits exhausted and their bodies drenched in blood. However, a mysterious substance had entangled itself around them, like some kind of imprint, emitting a faint golden glow. It looked divine, yet utterly lethal. Even after they fought their way out of the core area, monsters still pursued them, their targets locked. The blood chaos they had unleashed here even drew the attention of the larger giant fragments in the distance. Out of the darkness, a colossal black hand reached out. This was an entity that far exceeded their limits of resistance. Though still far off, the pressure alone made the three of them crackle and groan, their bodies on the verge of bursting. Bai Meng's cultivation was too low, he relied entirely on the protective light barriers Qinming and Tang Yusheng projected. Without them, he would have already exploded into a mist of blood. Even so, blood streamed from his 7 orifices, and his body was covered in cracks. Qinming and Tang Yusheng's armor was shattered into pieces, barely holding on. Qinming seized the wrists of the two beside him and let out a ferocious roar. His chaos force boiled, and golden threads wrapped around him and the others. If not for this, the three of them would have exploded to death in the next instant. During this struggle, the golden ranking fragment beneath their feet shot forward through a gap, finally escaping the heavenly chasm. Yet, the colossal black hand still descended, shattering the night mist with terrifying speed. It loomed over them, threatening to crush and obliterate them in a single grasp. Xiao Qin, where are you? Yu Zhensheng had already distanced himself, but at the last moment, he turned back. He had seen many streaks of light escaping ahead, but had not spotted Qinming among them. Xiao Qin, are you in the heavenly chasm? Yu Zhensheng called out. The heavenly chasm was vast, and this area was incredibly expansive. He wandered nearby, nearly approaching the dangerous netherworld again, desperate to go in and take a look. Old Yu, have you found him? Li Qingyan also turned back. Not yet. I'm going into the heavenly chasm. Yu Zhensheng said in a low voice. He asked Li Qingyan to look after the group of students from Shan Academy, youngsters he had originally been traveling with. Li Qingyan's face was filled with worry. Old Yu, senior, please don't go in. Xiao Qin's life is tougher than yours. Although you are now a Grand Master, you have more restrictions and shouldn't fight. Look, your spiritual domain is already boiling just from searching this way, and you have blood on the corner of your mouth. Yu Zhensheng's thinning hair made him look very old, but his gaze burned like a torch, and his will was unwavering. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just an old bag of bones in the twilight of my life, with no future or hope left. I want to go in and search, I don't want to leave any regrets, and I certainly don't want to live with them. He had heard that a few unlucky gifted ones with over-the-limit abilities, if they smashed through multiple giant fragments with overwhelming force, might be marked and face a life and death obstruction. Help me take care of those young people. Yu Zhensheng pushed Li Qingyan back, stopping him from following, and stepped toward the heavenly chasm. Dense golden threads crisscrossed over Qinming and his two companions, weaving together as if to form a celestial net that covered the three of them as they fought desperately. At the critical moment, an anomaly appeared on Tang Yusheng. A faint blood-red shadow materialized from the broken shackles within her body and flew out. With a thunderous crash, the pitch-black giant hand was blocked and shattered into nothingness. Is this the life-saving technique bestowed by the ancestor? Bai Meng asked, dazed. The three of them soared upward, finally escaping the heavenly chasm. The massive giant fragments ceased their pursuit. Their high-level power craved to merge with the source of the undying blood calamity and target the Jade Capital. However, some peculiar figures, shrouded in yin mist, continued to pursue Qinming and his companions. Qinming's mouth was filled with bloody froth, Tang Yusheng was coughing up blood, and Bai Meng's body had even cracked. All three were severely injured. Looking back, they realized the monsters were all in the fifth realm. Go. Don't pay them any mind. The golden ranking fragment dimmed as it carried them skyward. Yet, those lifelike figures, wrapped in that strange, dark mist, were just as fast and pursued them relentlessly. Xiao Qin. Although the landscape was vast, resembling a colossal, unhealable wound cleaved across the firmament by a giant axe, stretching endlessly beyond sight. Qinming's spiritual senses were keen, and he managed to catch that specific psychic fluctuation. Xiao Qin, where are you? This time, the voice was clearer. Qinming heard Yu Zhensheng's call, filled with urgency and unease, his psychic sound wave trembling. Qinming immediately shouted back in the direction of the voice, "Senior." Ah! In the distance, Yu Zhensheng reacted with joy. Though he stood upon a golden ranking fragment, he stumbled forward, his mouth foaming with blood as he rushed out of the pitch-black heavenly chasm. "Senior, what happened to you?" Qinming quickly hurried over to meet him. He understood instantly. The old man had returned specifically to find him, risking his life to re-enter the chaotic heavenly chasm, a place that was now a veritable death trap. "Good lad, I'm just glad you're safe." Yu Zhensheng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, the deep wrinkles on his face smoothing out as his eyes lit up. He let out a long sigh of relief. Qinming knew that this cruel great arrow was hostile to Earth immortals. It had left the ancestors in terrible condition, and even grandmasters were as frail as the gravely ill. Yet, Yu Zhensheng had risked his life to find him, disregarding his own safety. For a moment, Qinming felt a hot sting in his eyes, he barely managed to hold back the tears that threatened to well up. "Senior, your body." Qinming noticed that Yu Zhensheng's armor was shattered. He must have encountered grave danger when he went in earlier. Furthermore, his arm was twitching slightly, the flesh split open and bleeding continuously. Though Yu Zhensheng tried to endure it, he still coughed up a mouthful of blood. His second foray into that land of blood chaos was truly like walking on the edge of life and death, completely disregarding his own safety. Even Tang Yusheng and Bai Meng were deeply moved. This was a venerable senior who would truly risk his life for Qinming. Such passion, such a reckless attempt to save him, truly made their hearts swell and their noses tingle with unshed tears. "It's nothing. Let's go." Yu Zhensheng waved his tattered sleeve, shattering 4 of the special monsters that had been pursuing them. However, he himself stumbled, blood trickling from his nose and mouth. It wasn't that his cultivation was lacking, it was that this arrow was hostile to him, and the Dao resonance was backlashing against him. He pulled Qinming along, his body glowing as he also protected Tang Yusheng and Bai Meng. Using the golden ranking fragment to travel, he simultaneously repelled the pursuers behind them. "Senior. You can't fight anymore." Qinming realized that Yu Zhensheng had already intervened more than once in the heavenly chasm. His body simply couldn't hold out any longer. He was truly afraid the old man's body would suddenly collapse, and his spiritual domain extinguish. "I'm fine," Yu Zhensheng said, glancing back. Qinming immediately reached into the cloth wrap and pulled out a jade box containing the longevity leaf. This was an immortal treasure he had won from the Black Tower civilization during their first encounter in the heavenly realm. A single leaf could extend a person's life by about 15 years. Moreover, it was universal, effective for anyone regardless of their cultivation level, extending life at its very essence. Because of this, Qinming had been reluctant to use it when he was at a lower cultivation level. Now, he immediately took out 4 leaves and thrust them at Yu Zhensheng, urging him to consume them. "This is too precious. An old man like me doesn't need it." Yu Zhensheng refused, feeling it would be a waste for him to use it. Qinming spoke sternly, "You must take it, or I'll throw it away." Beside them, Bai Meng was stunned. "This is the longevity leaf." During the sword duel in the heavens, this great medicine herb with its immortal properties had caused a massive stir. Afterward, all the ancient monsters had been desperately trying to buy it, and even Earth immortals coveted it. He could only marvel inwardly, Brother Ming is incredibly wealthy. Tang Yusheng was also inwardly shocked. Even the secret vaults of Taishu might not have any records of leaves from such an immortal tree. On the path leading deep into the Jade Capital radiation zone, the golden ranking fragments dimmed. Many eventually fell from the firmament and were forced to travel on foot. "To think. I didn't die at the heavenly chasm, only to perish halfway with my sect members," Pei Shuyan lamented. He had seen the hope of returning to his homeland, yet met with disaster on the journey. Not far off, the physical body of a grandmaster from the immortal path was shattered, literally blown apart by an opponent. Pei Shuyan had also been torn apart, then shattered again, his body reduced to dozens of pieces. His pure yang consciousness cracked and disintegrated into fragments. Pei Shuyan sighed, filled with resentment. You outsiders, do you also intend to get involved in the battle between the Jade Capital and the Undying Blood Calamity? He only knew they came from afar and did not belong to any faction near the Jade Capital, but their specific origins remained unknown. In the night sky, a young man smiled faintly and said, "We are travelers from a distant land, with no intention of getting involved. We simply wish to gauge the strength of the native grandmasters in this region." Beside him, an old man said, "You shouldn't have acted. In this region, which is currently waging war against the outside, we are all mere travelers. We must not interfere in any incidents, or we risk being struck by backlash. The young man accepted the advice humbly, nodding. Yes, I know. I just couldn't help it. My hands were itching to fight when I saw an isolated target with no danger. From now on, we will observe carefully. We need to capture a small sample of the undying blood calamity, take it away, feed it blood food, and slowly cultivate it to see how it develops. Then, the young man turned his head and looked into the distance. Someone else is coming. They seem to have some skill. They've entangled themselves with the undying blood calamity's golden mark. They're worth observing. We should take them down. In the distant sky, Qinming abruptly opened his awakening eye, gazing down at the young man and the old man ahead, and saw the bloody scene on the ground. Don't come over. Pei Shuyan shouted weakly. The young man smiled. An acquaintance of yours. Don't panic. I'll have them come keep you company. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 562, The Saint Traveler, 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Under the cover of night, Qinming's eyes shimmered with immortal patterns. He saw the blood-soaked ground in the distance and sensed a faint telepathic transmission. It was an acquaintance. His expression shifted abruptly as he vaguely sensed who it was. To ambush an expeditionary force on their return journey. This is truly intolerable. Tang Yusheng, possessing a unique divine eye, also witnessed the gruesome scene. The ground was a horrifying sight, utterly blood-soaked. Though she usually carried the cold, aloof aura of a heavenly immortal, her heart was far from indifferent. The contrast was stark. Right now, she seethed with indignation, that an expeditionary force, meant to fall in otherworldly wars, had been slaughtered on their own territory. Outsiders, Yu Zhensheng declared, his own 7 orifices streaked with crimson blood. Bai Meng's heart tightened as he watched the figures ahead. They're approaching us deliberately. As the one with the lowest cultivation, he couldn't gauge the enemy's strength. But seeing 2 figures walking toward them with such unhurried composure, he knew they were supremely confident. Tang Yusheng said, there is no avoiding them. Greetings, everyone, the young man called out with a smile from a distance. He had curly flaxen hair, fair skin, deep-set eyes, and a high, slightly hooked nose. His smile was polite yet exuded confidence. After all, without such confidence, he would not have dared to approach them directly. Beside him stood an old man with thick white hair, an aquiline nose, and piercing eyes. His aura was restrained, yet he emanated a dangerous presence. Could he be a grandmaster? Qinming, Tang Yusheng, and the others felt their hearts sink. Being intercepted by such a figure on their journey was bound to lead to a life-and-death bloody conflict. The 4 of them crossed the night mist, drawing closer to the crimson area. The flaxen-haired youth and the white-haired grandmaster, from their appearance to their attire, bore distinct otherworldly characteristics. Though they appeared human, it was difficult to say if they were truly humanoid creatures or something else entirely. Since they dared to venture deep into Jade Capital territory, it was certain that they were not the only ones present. The white-haired grandmaster observed closely and said, that old man's body is covered in fine cracks. In this harsh great era, it's already difficult for high-level beings to survive. Yet he has fought numerous battles, and his physical condition is very poor. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. His body is emitting an irrepressible vitality. He must have consumed a great medicine. I wonder if it can be extracted. It was precisely because they saw Yu Zhensheng's dire condition that the white-haired grandmaster and the young man beside him had taken the initiative to greet him, friend Lily. Otherwise, when masters encountered each other in the night mist, their first instinct would be to avoid one another, a fundamental rule of self-preservation in the night mist world. Unless I am stronger than you, or there is simply no way to avoid you, I will not actively approach an opponent. This principle holds true even when expanded to the scale of 2 unfamiliar civilizations. Pei Shuyan. As Bai Meng drew closer, he saw the severed head of an acquaintance. The body lay shattered across the ground, broken into dozens of pieces. The entire area was a gruesome scene. The white-haired grandmaster's blood-stained hair clung to the skull, and the ground was littered with severed limbs and body parts from others, unrecognizable in the carnage. It was clear that a group of returners had been ambushed and slaughtered by a powerful enemy, their bodies disintegrated simultaneously. The culprits, the young man and the old man, had not yet fled. Danger. The last wisp of the pure yang consciousness remnant from the disintegrated grandmaster of the immortal path was fading. It issued a final, weak warning, clearly shattered and broken after being subjected to soul search. Having uttered that single word, his consciousness was extinguished forever. I'm dying too, Pei Shuyan sighed. He hadn't dissipated yet, primarily because the flaxen-haired young man still needed to perform a soul search on him to identify the top young talents in the Jade Capital Realm and verify certain matters. You were the ones who killed them. Bai Meng roared in fury. Boom. The chaos force erupted from Qin Ming's body. His face was as cold as frost, radiating boundless killing intent. Qin Ming. Pei Shuyan murmured, his spiritual flame growing ever dimmer. After fighting a bloody path through perilous barriers and life-or-death trials, the armor Qin Ming had worn was long since shattered and shed. He was now traveling in his true form. Old Pei. Qin Ming's rage soared, threatening to burn through the very heavens. This is too much. Tang Yusheng couldn't bear it either. They had traveled to the outer realm together, fighting to the death without ever falling, only to see their own faction's members suffer such a miserable fate upon returning to the Jade Capital Realm. Pei Shuyan's spiritual flame flickered weakly. If I'd known, I should have stayed in the enclave. Pushed harder, killed a few more otherworldly enemies. And died fighting out there. Old Pei, you'll be fine. Bai Meng shouted. Back in Sky City, he and Pei Shuyan had worked as brokers, mainly connecting major factions with Qin Ming. They'd spent every day eating and drinking together, forging a bond of true friendship. Whoosh. Qin Ming teleported, appearing instantly beside Pei Shuyan. The flaxen-haired young man swiftly shifted his position, blocking him with a smile. Brother, don't be in such a hurry. Boom. Qin Ming unleashed his chaos force. Dense runes enveloped his fist, and his aura erupted like boiling flames, searing the night sky red. The flaxen-haired man's eyes widened in surprise, his figure wavering slightly. His expression grew grave. This target is covered in gruesome cracks, bleeding from all 7 orifices, and half his body is crimson, clearly severely injured in a major battle. Yet he still possesses such power. At the same time, Tang Yusheng stepped forward, blocking his path. Qin Ming charged at Pei Shuyan, and Bai Meng quickly followed suit. The white-haired Grand Master from the deeper reaches of the Night Mist world remained motionless, his gaze fixed on Yu Zhensheng, locked in a tense standoff. Yu Zhensheng's mind raced as he stared into the profound night sky. The Jade Capital and the colossal entity had resumed their ancient war, and within the enclave, several factions were locked in a chaotic blood battle. Meanwhile, in the rear, some monsters and demons from afar were stirring up trouble, instigating this very massacre. Yu Zhensheng worried that chaos might have erupted in the Jade Capital's main camp. If it were just these two, they wouldn't dare act so recklessly within the heart of a supreme faction. There must be even stronger figures backing them. The young man from the otherworldly land spoke. Brother, though we've only just met, we are of the same kind. I admire you. By same kind, he didn't mean temperament or life goals, but rather a recognition of strength and status. He acknowledged that Qin Ming was truly formidable. This was the guiding principle in certain regions of the Night Mist world, only those of equal strength were worthy of respect. He continued, we passed through this place earlier and had a minor skirmish. If these people are your acquaintances, then I truly apologize. Qin Ming remained silent. After carefully identifying Pei Shuyan's aura, he began to circulate his adhesion force, gathering the scattered flesh and blood. Even the blood on the ground began to flow backward, being selectively drawn from the mixed pools toward a makeshift, tattered body. At the same time, Qin Ming used his chaos force to bind Pei Shuyan's pure yang consciousness, pulling it together and stuffing it into his ragged, ragdoll-like body. Though the body was shattered in a bloody mess, the nourishment from the blood qi stopped Pei Shuyan's fading consciousness from deteriorating further. Amidst the excruciating pain, Pei Shuyan felt a surge of astonishment. This is actually working. Qin Ming was somehow sorting through the carnage, selecting and assembling a body for him, a feat even Pei Shuyan himself couldn't have managed. Of course, there were still mistakes. One of his severed fingers had been completely pulverized and couldn't be found. Qin Ming had tried to substitute it with a finger from an old Grand Master, but abandoned the attempt when he felt the body rejecting it. Brother. Qin, be careful. My injured heart and shattered lungs, don't install someone else's parts. Our squad once had a spirit wolf mount. Old Pei was genuinely worried that Qin Ming might end up giving him a wolf's heart while trying to repair his body. Bai Meng asked with concern, Brother Pei, try to sense it carefully. See if anything else is missing. I might survive, Pei Shuyan said weakly. He felt his lingering life had been temporarily preserved. Don't talk. Just focus on recovering, Qin Ming said, quickly piecing together Pei Shuyan's body and discreetly stitching a few wounds. In his early years as a prodigy of the Pure Land of the Immortal Path, Pei Shuyan had looked down on the Awakening Path system. He had also once harbored feelings for Li Qingyu. Consequently, while his initial relationship with Qin Ming hadn't been hostile, it certainly wasn't harmonious. He had even been known to pick faults with Qin Ming. That was until Hellion Zhaoyu appeared. As an immortal seed of the Imperial Immortal Sect and a direct descendant of Hellion Chongyun, he was naturally overbearing and aggressive. His targeted hostility unexpectedly brought Pei Shuyan and Qin Ming closer. From then on, they gradually became friends, and their relationship grew stronger. Suddenly, Pei Shuyan's eyes widened with terror. Brother Qin, I'm missing a part. Bai Meng was puzzled. Old Pei, what part are you missing? The most important piece of a man's life. Pei Shuyan said urgently, sounding even more anxious and terrified than when he was on the brink of death. He pleaded with Qin Ming to help him search for it. PFF'd. Hearing this, Bai Meng couldn't hold back. He spat out a mouthful of blood from laughing, his own severe injuries flaring up. Amidst the solemn and oppressive atmosphere, Bai Meng struggled to suppress his laughter. It's possible it exploded, he said. Brother Ming, why don't you find a replacement from someone else for him? No. Pei Shuyan's composure was completely shattered. He cried out, his voice weak but desperate, Brother Qin, I gave up on Qingyu long ago. Please. Don't dwell on the past. Truly, please search for it again, more carefully. Qin Ming replied earnestly, it's really gone. It must have been blown apart. Pei Shuyan felt a wave of icy cold wash over him. His mangled body trembled, bleeding from every gap, as if it were about to explode again. A profound sense of desolation washed over him. Am I destined to become an eunuch? He was still young, far from the Grandmaster realm where one could regrow severed limbs. Was he to spend the next several decades as Steward Pei? Life felt so bleak and utterly pointless. Bai Meng tried to comfort him. Brother Pei, old Pei, pull yourself together. Later, you can take some powerful tonics and use a few secret techniques. Even low-level cultivators can reconstruct their flesh and blood. If you're in a hurry, just piece together a temporary one for now. PFF'd. Pei Shuyan coughed up a large mouthful of blood, his eyes rolling back as he collapsed. Earlier, when his body had been torn apart, he had endured the excruciating pain without losing consciousness. Now, he finally succumbed. Qin Ming rose to his feet. To an outsider, the process of piecing his acquaintance's body back together seemed to happen in the blink of an eye. He made a grasping motion in the air toward the ground with his right hand, and all the blood and bone flowed back into place, completing the reconstruction in a brief instant. Because of this, the atmosphere at the scene remained unchanged. Both sides were still locked in a standoff, sizing each other up. The young man with flaxen curly hair smiled, seemingly projecting goodwill. Brother, how should I address you? I'm being serious, you and I are the same kind of people. And this fairy is also one of our kind. Who are you calling the same kind of person? Tang Yusheng, who had always maintained a cold and aloof demeanor when facing strangers, retorted sharply. She harbored a deep dislike for the man. A beauty that could topple cities, a peerless countenance. You must be the female saint of the Jade Capital, aren't you? The foreign youth showed no anger. Instead, his smile deepened as he introduced himself as a traveler. I am the sixth in my family. You may call me Saint Traveler or Traveler Sixth. As peers who stand at the pinnacle of different civilizations, we should get closer and exchange ideas more often. Bai Meng remarked, Saint Traveler, what arrogant words. If Pei Shuyan were still conscious, he would have remained silent. Traveler Sixth was truly terrifying, he had single-handedly crushed a Grandmaster of the Immortal Path and annihilated their entire group with just one hand. Qin Ming said, you kill my friend, and yet you still wish to be close to me. The Saint Traveler replied, I merely killed a few lower rankers. Why should you care, brother? We have no desire to make mortal enemies of the Jade Capital faction and incite war. We are only here to conduct experiments and collect some samples. After offering an olive branch and receiving no courtesy in return, he hardened his tone and smiled faintly. If you are unwilling, then so be it. He continued, actually, I would rather get close to and exchange thoughts with this fairy. Presumptuous. Bai Meng snapped. This man dared to speak so brazenly and flirt with his sister. Tang Yusheng's face was covered in frost as she stared at the blood-soaked ground. She had already been struggling to come to terms with the scene, and now she wanted to kill this man even more. Qin Ming was communicating with Yu Zhensheng, trying to gauge the depth of the white-haired old man's cultivation. A Grandmaster. Extremely troublesome, Yu Zhensheng replied secretly. He was in poor condition, while the otherworldly land Grandmaster across from them was at his peak. Traveler Sixth said, you bear the golden mark of the undying blood calamity. I am quite interested in it. I have been polite to you, but do not mistake that for me needing to show you any respect. Suddenly, the conch on his person sounded, causing his expression to change slightly. He answered immediately, and his face darkened at a visible rate, completely losing the earlier smile and composure. The atmosphere at the scene became oppressive. He looked at the Grandmaster and sent a transmission with a grave expression, the Seventh Realm Traveler is in trouble. He encountered a dog. What? The white-haired Grandmaster was alarmed. The reason they dared to venture into this territory was the presence of supreme powerhouses leading the way. Now, with one of their leaders in trouble, a sense of deep unease settled over them. Qinming was in resonance, sensing everything with all his might, trying to understand what had happened. Soon, he captured valuable information. The Seventh Realm Traveler was collecting important samples of the undying blood calamity. While operating freely in the rear, he discovered the various teams returning from the expedition. He naturally avoided the sharp edge of the Earth Immortals traveling in groups. It wasn't out of fear, but rather that he was observing from a distance with a detached mindset. Those were all exhausted troops, some were even severely injured and could die at any moment. As long as he didn't get caught in the main army, he feared no one in a one-on-one encounter. Sure enough, he spotted a straggler traveling alone, a Seventh Realm black and white bear. Though covered in blood, it still looked adorably plump. He wanted to capture it and keep it as a guard beast. However, the black and white bear's ferocity far exceeded his expectations. Once enraged and turned against him, it transformed into a dog sword immortal. The Seventh Realm Traveler had now entered a desperate flight, having completely infuriated the native dog in his eyes. The dog sword immortal was truly beyond furious. It had fought a grueling blood battle against a strongman from the outer realm, nearly dying to obtain a single, thin wisp of primordial chi. Now, some bastard from the outer realm dared to intercept it. Primordial chi was a finite resource, the more you used, the less you had. In today's brutal environment, such a heavenly treasure was a life-sustaining divine object. How could anyone squander it so recklessly? However, the bastards from the outer realm forced it to act. Thus, it held and completely lost control, intent on slashing its opponent to death. You're the fucking watchdog. How dare you think you can tame me? Woof, woof, woof. The dog sword immortal launched a chase spanning hundreds of thousands of li. Mainly, it had set its sights on the faint Xuanhuan chi swirling around the other party's body. If it could seize it, it could recover its losses. The Seventh Realm Traveler was struck by the sword light repeatedly and was about to fall. He was sending a message to his faction's allies: act cautiously. It's time to retreat. We must not be reckless again. Qinming showed a strange expression. The beast god of Black-White Mountain truly lived up to its fierce reputation. After all, back when it was in one of its mad fits, it had dared to provoke even Lumo. The Saint Traveler said, Elder Bai, since the opponent's Grandmaster has a serious problem, please make your move. Take them down immediately, and then we will retreat quickly. Very well. The white-haired Grandmaster nodded. They no longer bothered to hide their intentions or show goodwill for the sake of investigation. They struck directly. Qinming spoke, Great Tang, the Jade Mirror. He knew that Tang Yusheng carried an extraordinary special weapon whose name sounded similar to Jade Capital. Great Tang's brows furrowed slightly as she secretly and helplessly informed him, I gave it to my ancestor to use. In the supreme blood battle, to maximize its power, she had given the treasure mirror to the ancient monster of the Seventh Realm, who, in turn, left a life-saving technique within her body. Just as before, in the heavenly chasm, a pitch-black hand had descended upon them. If not for that life-saving technique, they would have undoubtedly been struck into a bloody mist, their bodies and spirits annihilated. Qinming sighed. Although his side had more people, they were all old, weak, sick, and disabled, and their combat power was a level lower. Old Yu's life was no longer in danger now, but his body was still covered in cracks and had not yet recovered, making him truly unfit for a life-and-death battle. Even he and Tang Yusheng had suffered injuries to their origin, making them unsuitable for the blood battle. Boom. The Grandmaster, who was at his peak state, charged from across the battlefield. The wind and clouds churned, the heavens and earth lost their color, and the entire night sky was filled with clouds and mist like towering waves crashing against the firmament, shaking the world. Qinming directly took out the decaying fan and aimed it at him. Suddenly, the white-haired Grandmaster teleported backward to dodge. The terrifying attack he had been brewing was instantly dispelled by the fan. He didn't dare to charge forward. At that moment, Yu Zhensheng proactively took the decaying fan. This treasure would unleash even greater power in his hands. They have an extraordinary treasure. The white-haired Grandmaster said in a deep voice. Now, even if they wanted to retreat, it would no longer be safe. The other side had already activated the decaying fan and could strike a fatal blow at any time. This matter could no longer end peacefully. We have won too. The Saint Traveler's status was no small matter. He immediately took out a wooden sword, completely charred black as if struck by celestial thunder. It was covered in cracks and seemed ready to disintegrate at any moment. Bai Meng, fall back. Take Pei Shuyan and leave first. Qinming sent a telepathic transmission. Today, he and the opponent were locked in a fight to the death. A surge of anger welled up in his heart. To be ambushed like this on their journey home, with an acquaintance dying tragically and his own life-saving miraculous treasure forced to activate, the losses were truly immense. Qinming knew the decaying fan would likely be completely destroyed today. He took out the yellow canopy umbrella to protect himself and Tang Yusheng, ready to support Grandmaster Yu Zhensheng at any moment. Got it. Bai Meng hoisted Pei Shuyan onto his back and turned to leave. Thud. Just after running a few miles, old Pei's leg fell off. Bai Meng had no choice but to quickly pick it up, wrapping the crumbling Pei Shuyan in a light barrier. He really can't lose another part, Bai Meng thought, or old Pei might do something desperate later. In the midst of the battlefield, a fierce wind roared, tearing through the night. The decaying fan, wielded by a grandmaster, unleashed its terrifying power. Opposite them, the pitch-black wooden sword glowed, its awe-inspiring Dao patterns spreading outward. Though its blade was crumbling into black ash, on the verge of breaking, the sudden burst of its killing light still shook the heavens and earth. The sword light shredded the dark clouds, a terrifying sight as its aura poured down like a river of stars, illuminating both the heavenly realm and the earth. Clang! The sword light struck. Boom! A black storm of wind erupted, like the wind calamity that could devastate mountains and seas, one of the many tribulations ancient cultivators had to endure. In an instant, the world was consumed by the sword light, vast as an ocean, and the wind calamity, all-encompassing and omnipresent. Qin Ming and Tang Yusheng retreated, catching up to Bai Meng and carrying him even further away. At the last moment, Qin Ming pressed a teleportation talisman into his hand. If anything goes wrong, use this to escape. At the center of the battlefield, two grandmasters wielded their treasured artifacts, unleashing their full power as they clashed. The entire world was submerged in blade light and the aura of tribulation. Nearby hills collapsed, and vast forests and grasslands were reduced to ash. The ground tore apart and exploded, creating numerous abyss-like craters. Here, blade light poured down, and the wind calamity rent the heavens. Such a duel could not be sustained. Grandmasters of this era were unable to engage in prolonged battles, and their weapons, already damaged treasures, were on the verge of disintegrating. After another massive upheaval, the entire region seemed to shatter. Holding the yellow canopy umbrella, Qin Ming charged toward the center of the battlefield, braving the residual aftershocks of the blade light and wind calamity. He was deeply concerned for Grandmaster Yu Zhensheng. Tang Yusheng followed close behind, breaking through the chaos. On the other side, the Saint Traveler's expression was grave. After assessing the situation, he let out a long breath and stepped into the fray. The white-haired Grandmaster's wooden sword had shattered, leaving only the hilt. He himself was covered in blood, his clothes tattered from the wind calamity's erosion. Even with the peerless blade light protecting him, he couldn't block everything. He had suffered severe injuries, blood streamed not only from his mouth and nose but also from his eyes and ears. Across from him, Yu Zhensheng still stood. The decaying fan had disintegrated, and blade light was dissipating from his shoulder. One of his arms was gone, leaving a bloody mess where his shoulder blade had been shattered. Grandmaster Yu Zhensheng was in dire condition, missing an arm and covered in blood. He gritted his teeth and stood his ground, blocking his opponent. Senior. Qin Ming cried out in alarm, instantly appearing by his side. Yu Zhensheng spoke, "It's fine. He's suffering too. Even if I die, I'll drag him down with me." Under normal circumstances, after the brutal battle in the heavenly chasm, he was in no condition to fight again. His current state was terrifyingly poor, and he could no longer hold back the enemy. However, old Yu had resolved to die. He was determined to drag his opponent into the abyss with him. In his view, having reached this level of cultivation and lived this long, his life had been worthwhile. He would never allow Qin Ming, a talent he held in high regard, to die before his eyes. Qin Ming couldn't bear to watch him throw his life away. He signaled Tang Yusheng to come closer, then activated the teleportation talisman. Yet, as the three of them streaked across the night sky, the white-haired Grandmaster and the Saint Traveler followed like shadows, keeping pace with them. Fate Entanglement Technique. The white-haired Grandmaster had used a secret technique to lock onto them, allowing the two visitors from the otherworldly land to travel with them. Finally, they landed in a mountainous region. At this point, neither side intended to flee, they were prepared to fight to the death. Silently, Yu Zhensheng's external heavenly magnetic domain expanded, appearing as if a black hole had emerged, yet also as if countless tangible magnetic ripples were manifesting. Kill. Yu Zhensheng charged forward, striking the white-haired Grandmaster. With a loud bang, the two clashed in a life and death struggle of immense intensity, only to recoil from each other in the next instant. The white-haired Grandmaster's body was damaged, and he coughed up blood continuously. Yu Zhensheng's other arm had also exploded. Both his shoulders were now bare, and blood dripped steadily, turning the ground muddy. Senior. Qin Ming rushed forward. Save your strength to fight that Saint Traveler, Yu Zhensheng said. Rest assured, I will definitely take this white-haired bastard down. He swayed as he moved forward, his legs and torso beginning to glow in the absence of his arms. Qin Ming did not retreat. Golden threads crisscrossed his body in a dense web, not only flowing over him but also stitching Yu Zhensheng's body back together. It was as if countless golden needles were appearing between them. He sent a telepathic message, "Senior, channel your heavenly light into my body, let me try to fight." Yu Zhensheng refused. "No, your physical body cannot withstand the impact." Then, he was slightly alarmed as he sensed the wondrous nature of the golden threads. "This kind of ultimate technique can be unleashed through my body." At this moment, they seemed to be fused together, their heavenly light flowing and blending until they became as one. Tang Yusheng also approached and began channeling her divine substance into Qin Ming's body. She already knew that Qin Ming, who cultivated 3 paths simultaneously, could fully accept and transform her power. Opposite them, the white-haired Grand Master sneered repeatedly. He took a single step forward, striking in an instant. How could he give them a chance? The moment he landed on this mountain, he had been channeling his power, and now he unleashed his forbidden technique. Boom! The heavens and earth seemed to shatter. Nearby stone mountains and the primeval forest were struck by an invisible force, cracking inch by inch before completely exploding. With the white-haired Grand Master at the center, blinding fist light erupted, and the sharp patterns of the heavenly blade emerged. Fist and blade resonated, intertwining as they surged forward, overwhelming his opponents. From the rear, the Saint Traveler sneered, "You're about to disintegrate, at your wit's end. How dare you challenge a Grand Master in better condition?" From Yu Zhensheng, Qin Ming, and Tang Yusheng, countless golden threads shot out, dense and numerous, charging forward. They looked like a rain of light from ascending celestials, stretched into filaments and cascading across the heavens and earth. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 563, Slaying the Enemy, Returning to the Homeland 5058 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Under the night sky, golden threads wove through the air, painting the darkness with brilliant, shifting light. Wherever they passed, every inch of the void twisted and churned, blurring the world and causing one's vision to sway violently. The fist light, which had descended like a sun wheel, and the heavenly blade's chilling glow that had covered the night sky, were both pierced by the golden threads and frozen in an instant. The grand, tumultuous scene of battle abruptly came to a standstill. Nearby, the collapsing stone mountains and the shattering primeval forest were also frozen as if encased in ice. The dense network of golden threads, like countless slender divine nails, had pinned this entire region of the world into a static painting. The white-haired Grandmaster's pupils constricted. His attacks were terrifyingly powerful, yet now both his fist light and heavenly blade were briefly imprisoned, pierced through. His hair stood on end. The opponent's wondrous technique filled him with profound unease. Like an illusion, the frozen image soon shattered. After the ripples subsided, the stone mountains collapsed, the forest splintered, and the countless falling leaves exploded into the air. The white-haired Grandmaster's fist and blade lights rapidly disintegrated. The dazzling sun wheel dimmed, and the blade light that had surged like a churning sea extinguished. The golden threads thrust forward, weaving into a dense, unstoppable torrent of flowing light. The white-haired Grandmaster's heart hammered in his chest as a frigid chill surged through his entire spine. He fought with everything he had, sacred patterns spreading across his skin as he unleashed several spiritual aspects, manifestations of power in rapid succession. Silver, dragon-shaped lights erupted from his body, not just one, but several. He was invoking a forbidden technique once again. With a series of hissing sounds, the golden threads pierced through all 6 dragons. Faint, agonizing dragon roars echoed through the void, causing the white-haired Grandmaster to grunt in pain. He let out a roar, his form dissolving like a disintegrating sun yet soaring like an ascending immortal, wreathed in brilliant, blazing radiance as he charged forward. At this moment, both combatants were in dire straits. Yu Zhensheng was in terrible condition, fighting with a crippled body after losing both arms. Though he was channeling and executing Qin Ming's profound techniques, the lack of personal mastery made his movements sluggish and strained. Meanwhile, the white-haired Grandmaster was unleashing one trump card after another, burning through his full strength. Amidst the hissing sounds, golden threads pierced the Grandmaster's arms and chest, blood spurted out, and parts of his body were torn asunder. Yu Zhensheng, too, was coughing up mouthfuls of blood, the cracks spreading across his body were widening, and he was on the verge of disintegration. The yellow canopy umbrella spun as Qin Ming unleashed it, instantly forming a shield. Forged from strange metal from its canopy to its handle, it withstood the beam of light that resembled a descending immortal. Kill. Both sides fought desperately, their roars erupting simultaneously after enduring the terrifying onslaught. The distance between them was too close. In this narrow pass, the first to flinch or retreat would immediately face the opponent's full-force attack. The white-haired Grandmaster's heart trembled. His heart and lungs had been pierced by the golden threads. Those seemingly delicate filaments possessed a lethality that was utterly horrifying. His body was pierced and sliced, his ribs were shattered. Half of his heart, crushed to a pulp, had been torn out. Even his left eye had been pierced, and a chunk of his skull had been shattered by a cluster of golden threads. Yet his fist light, blade chi, and immortal light were equally devastating. They bypassed the yellow canopy umbrella, raining down relentlessly on his opponent from all directions. Yu Zhensheng shielded Qinming and Tang Yusheng behind him, separating them with a light barrier as he bore the brunt of the offensive attacks himself. Boom. The existing cracks on Yu Zhensheng's body widened under the impact of the external force. He was torn apart, his legs severed and his abdomen bursting open. The scene was gruesome, both grandmasters had suffered grievous injuries. Yu Zhensheng urgently sent a telepathic transmission, urging Qinming and Tang Yusheng to retreat. He had already ensnared the white-haired grandmaster with his golden threads and was prepared to self-destruct, doing everything in his power to take his opponent down with him. Great Tang, fall back. Qinming shouted. He couldn't bear to watch Yu Zhensheng die so brutally. He continuously released golden threads, using them to stitch Yu Zhensheng's body back together as he prepared to attack alongside him. Tang Yusheng replied, "If you lose, my retreat would be meaningless, I would still be hunted down and killed. We might as well strike together." The white-haired grandmaster summoned the last remnants of Xuanhuan qi within him. One of his eyes bled while the other gleamed with a ferocious light as he launched a full-power attack. He was gambling on the fact that his opponent was on the brink of collapse. One more strike, and he would likely finish the job. If he failed to silence his foe, he feared that once the man contacted his companions, he, crippled by his injuries, would never escape this region with the Saint Traveler. Behind Yu Zhensheng, the golden threads were densely woven, all piercing through his flesh. Qinming wasn't attacking. Instead, he was using a gentle healing technique to temporarily stitch Yu Zhensheng's legs and abdomen back together before the threads finally surged forward toward the enemy. Yu Zhensheng couldn't bring himself to shatter his own soul, fearing he might take Qinming down with him. He had no choice but to brace himself and launch another direct attack, channeling Qinming's profound technique to strike his opponent. In this final clash, both sides fought with everything they had, locked in a life and death struggle. Endless golden threads pierced the white-haired grandmaster, pinning down his very spiritual domain. The threads quivered violently before tearing his body apart. With a thunderous boom, the white-haired grandmaster disintegrated. On the other side, the yellow canopy umbrella was struck with a resounding clang, shaking violently before being sent flying. The white-haired grandmaster's desperate final technique was terrifying. Though his own body had been shattered, the beams of light he unleashed still surged forward. Yu Zhensheng's body was torn to pieces, and his spirit fared no better, leaving him drenched in blood. Ultimately, Qinming had manifested the golden threads within the chaos force, a technique of such overwhelming power that when Yu Zhensheng amplified it to the grandmaster level, his aging body simply couldn't withstand the strain. In truth, this was merely a weakened version after the conversion. If the chaos force had been used in its pure form to manifest the golden threads and then amplified to the same level, it would have been even more uncontrollable. Combined with the external attack from the white-haired grandmaster, Yu Zhensheng, plagued by both internal and external crises, could no longer remain standing. Even Qinming and Tang Yusheng, whom old Yu had shielded behind him, suffered the terrible impact. Their bodies were torn apart, no longer whole. At that moment, the Saint Traveler's heart pounded with apprehension. He hadn't expected a crippled opponent to be capable of making the white-haired grandmaster beside him suffer such a crushing defeat. Truly terrifying. He moved like a ghost, closing the distance in an instant. Such a figure was naturally adept at seizing opportunities, seeing everyone crippled and broken, he immediately moved in for the kill. Yu Zhensheng's one remaining, relatively intact foot flew up, wreathed in a rain of light, aimed directly at him. The Saint Traveler's face turned cold. How could a single foot from a near-death grandmaster stop him? Still, he was cautious by nature and dodged. His true target was Qinming, the very person who had continuously unleashed the primordial gold threads to rewrite the battle's course. He wanted to eliminate this opponent first, but more than that, he coveted that mysterious and profound technique. The Night Mist world was vast. Within the supreme civilization system, there were always unknown, unpassed down secrets. The value of such forbidden domain techniques far exceeded what, priceless, could describe. By now, Yu Zhensheng lay scattered across the ground. Qinming and Tang Yusheng were in no better condition. In fact, Qinming's severed hand and Tang Yusheng's severed arm were even tangled together. With a whoosh, the yellow canopy umbrella soared into the air. Even without anyone providing spiritual essence or divine matter, it autonomously engaged the enemy. Do you really think so little of this seat? The yellow canopy umbrella spun. The umbrella's surface displayed not only a captivating figure but also lit up with a radiance like a starry sky. Sacred silk tassels cascaded from its edges, and a dense, majestic purple chi surged forth. It was teleporting, launching an attack on the Saint Traveler. A sentient exotic metal weapon. The Saint Traveler's mind reeled. He was startled, but quickly realized the weapon itself had issues. It was limited to the Grandmaster level, perhaps once glorious but now tarnished. The yellow canopy umbrella only needed to block the opponent for a moment. For Qin Ming, that was enough. He began piecing his body back together. From the heavenly chasm to this point, he had suffered injury upon injury. Just now, he had even split into 8 pieces. Tang Yusheng was in a similar state. Their blood mingled, and their broken bodies lay piled together, a truly miserable sight. Senior. Qin Ming realized the severity of Yu Zhensheng's condition. He was being backlashed by the chaos force, his body and soul being torn apart. If he hadn't absorbed the longevity leaf earlier and gained its powerful life force, he would have died. Unlike the white-haired Grandmaster, who had a wisp of Xuanhuan qi to sustain him, Yu Zhensheng was fighting with his life on the line, pushing himself to the limit to unleash his strongest power. Fortunately, Qin Ming was most skilled in the chaos force. Once he had recovered enough, he should be able to resolve Yu Zhensheng's hidden danger. Great Tang, are you alright? Tang Yusheng replied, move your severed hand and leg away. Qin Ming said, I just pieced myself back together, you know. Are you asking me to stitch you up as well? No need. Withdraw your blood, I'll do it myself. Tang Yusheng noticed the broken shackles within her body glowing. After being pushed to the brink of death, she showed signs of nirvana. This bloodline shackle is far more mysterious than she had imagined. Qin Ming withdrew the last drop of his blood into his body, golden threads coursing through his entire being. At the same time, Tang Yusheng reconstructed her own body. She was then enveloped in a cocoon of light, passively falling into a deep, unconscious slumber as she began to self-repair. Qin Ming extended a hand, his adhesion force glowing as he pieced Yu Zhensheng back together. However, it was clear that a portion of Yu Zhensheng's body was missing, the destruction had been too severe. The backlash of the chaos force was truly terrifying. This kind of shattering was practically tearing a person apart completely. The injuries were beyond critical. Qin Ming continuously gulped down great medicine. Only after he fully recovered could he help Yu Zhensheng eliminate the lingering chaos force. Besides, he needed to deal with the Saint Traveler now. As for the white-haired Grandmaster, his body had exploded, scattering in all directions. Without the longevity leaf to sustain his bodily functions, his situation was even more dire. At this moment, the white-haired Grandmaster was filled with shock and terror. His spiritual fragments were pierced by golden threads, pinned completely like by a golden divine nail, and were actually fading, unable to reorganize or restore themselves. Qin Ming's wounds, entangled with Dao resonance, were difficult to heal in the short term. However, his vitality and strength had recovered with the help of the great medicine. Right now, his once proudly sturdy body was a patched-up version, riddled with cracks. He tried his best to stitch it together with golden threads, preventing himself from shattering again upon the slightest movement. Not far away, the Saint Traveler's linen-colored curly hair fluttered in the night wind. His expression shifted unpredictably. He was the only one at full strength on the scene, everyone else was either on the verge of death or severely crippled. If he were to retreat under such circumstances, it would be utterly disgraceful. Finally, the moment he broke free from the yellow canopy umbrella, he cast an entanglement technique on Qin Ming, locking onto his opponent. Immediately after, as if ignoring space, he vanished and reappeared right in front of Qin Ming with a whoosh, temporarily escaping the yellow canopy umbrella's reach. He intended to hunt Qin Ming, vaguely feeling that if he could defeat this man, he might be able to change his own fate and soar to new heights. Qin Ming met the attack, his expression grave. Even as he fought, he had to consider his physical body's endurance. For instance, just as he was about to unleash the inner vision heaven-cleaving axe, he felt his own body on the verge of splitting apart. The technique was simply too taxing on his essence, qi, and spirit. With a sharp shink, he summoned the 9-colored sword qi, employing an immortal path technique for a long-range strike. Saint Traveler, stop it. The white-haired Grandmaster's spiritual fragment roared, desperately calling for help. The yellow canopy umbrella flew toward him, gradually devouring his scattered consciousness fragments. He tried to fight back, but the golden threads transformed as Yu Zhensheng pinned him down, suppressing his power. It was horrifying, he could only watch helplessly as he was consumed. After Qin Ming and the Saint Traveler clashed, the Grandmaster, feeling cornered and fighting for survival at death's door, went completely berserk. Combined with the Saint Traveler's entanglement technique, the two were locked in a bloody battle, unable to separate. No. The white-haired Grandmaster trembled in fear. He still wanted to live. If he could hold out until the Saint Traveler won, he might be able to recover. In truth, even if the Saint Traveler intervened, he couldn't save the white-haired Grand Master from the Golden Thread's tribulation. Reality was cruel. The Great Umbrella struck silently and relentlessly, giving him no chance to recover. After assessing the situation, the white-haired Grand Master realized with despair that even if the Saint Traveler won, it wouldn't be anytime soon. What kind of monster is that young man covered in heavenly light? He had been wounded so severely that he was on the verge of disintegrating, yet he still fought the Saint Traveler to the death. He was truly an anomaly. The white-haired Grand Master fell into despair. He knew he was doomed. He couldn't hold out until the Saint Traveler finally struck down his opponent. No. This time, it was the yellow canopy umbrella that cried out in anguish. Its food was burning. Its highly valued soul light servant was walking toward self-destruction. The white-haired Grand Master was a man of decisive action. Knowing there was no way out, he refused to become his enemy's nourishment. He began to burn his own spiritual fragments, actively erasing his existence. Please, don't kill yourself, sob sob. The yellow canopy umbrella wailed in utter heartbreak. I hate this. The white-haired Grand Master roared, his voice laced with fury amidst the flames of his own self-destruction. To be begged for and wept over in his final moments, it shattered his resolve. Yellow canopy umbrella wailed, wah. A Grand Master, a prize within his grasp, had just vanished into nothingness. Blood streamed down Qin Ming's body. His gaze was fixed on the short sword in the Saint Traveler's hand. It was barely the length of a palm, glowing with a faint purple light. It was a flying sword, yet the Saint Traveler held it in his hand, and it had just slashed across Qin Ming's shoulder. The Traveler civilization. Is it really that wealthy? Qin Ming's eyes glazed over. I acquired this by chance. Do you want it? The Saint Traveler said with a faint smile. Clang. Qin Ming drew his snow-white strange metal short sword for defense. At the same time, he prepared to unleash all his trump cards, desperate to end the battle quickly. If it dragged on, he wouldn't be able to hold out. The yellow canopy umbrella moved closer, ready to help him fight the opponent. Whoosh. The Saint Traveler activated a teleportation talisman. Using the entanglement technique, he dragged Qin Ming along with him, transforming into a streak of light that vanished into the horizon. In the blink of an eye, Qin Ming had already chased him 800 miles away. Neither of them spoke. This was a life-and-death battle, and both were fighting with everything they had, holding nothing back. A moment later, Qin Ming's body shattered, but he pieced himself back together instantly. The Saint Traveler's expression was grim. He had just been decapitated by the nine-colored sword Qi, his head flying off completely. Yet, he was truly formidable, instantly using a mystical art to merge his severed body and recover. Hand over that golden thread profound technique, and I will leave this place immediately and no longer fight you to the death. How about it? The Saint Traveler said. Qin Ming replied, you want me to compromise, and then you'll just keep pushing for more. Using such words and tactics in a life and death struggle only shows you're desperate. Clang. The Saint Traveler summoned his purple shimmering flying sword, unleashing the flying immortal light and scattering runes like a starry sky to envelop Qin Ming. The attack was terrifying. Qin Ming gritted his teeth, resisting the urge to disintegrate as he activated his spiritual domain, attempting to seize the purple, shimmering flying sword. Swish. The Traveler civilization was renowned for its speed. In the instant their psychic connection was severed, the young man with flaxen hair relied on his sheer physical speed to snatch the flying sword and retreat instantly. Qin Ming's expression grew grim. Such speed was truly astonishing. Even at his peak, he would have to push his chaos force to its absolute limit just to keep up. His injuries were too severe, preventing him from unleashing many of his trump cards at full power. With his opponent moving so fast, if he couldn't secure a one-hit kill, the man would vanish in an instant. In his current state, he couldn't hope to chase him down. Qin Ming decided to gamble everything on a single strike. He had used all the golden threads he could muster to stitch his own body together. Without them, he would have been torn apart long ago in this high-intensity battle, no matter how careful he was. A moment later, amidst a white-hot clash, blood sprayed in all directions. Disregarding his physical form, Qin Ming unleashed the golden threads to their fullest, piercing forward. In the process, his body not only shattered again but broke apart even more severely, splintering into dozens, even hundreds of pieces. The Saint Traveler erupted in a rain of multicolored light, ascending like a feathered immortal. His speed had reached its absolute limit. It was clear that the mystical technique of speed he wielded was one that even the white-haired Grand Master had never fully mastered. This was one of the supreme inheritances of the Traveler faction. Golden threads, dense and numerous, pierced through the void like a stream of flowing light, chasing him. After a single missed strike, they immediately pressed forward again, following his multiple teleportations. The Saint Traveler's heart hammered in his chest. His opponent's mystical technique was actually a level faster than his own in the domain of speed. In the end, those golden threads pierced through him like golden needles. Overconfident, he had been nailed through both body and spirit. He had previously watched the battle between the Grandmasters and witnessed the speed of the golden threads. Based on that, he judged that if he fought an opponent of the same level, he could evade them. However, he didn't know that the golden threads Yu Zhensheng had transformed were a reduced power version. This was a fatal misjudgment. The Saint Traveler did his utmost to neutralize the attack and did manage to break some of the threads, but in the end, he was completely immobilized. He was like an insect, pinned dead by golden needles, unable to move an inch. Qin Ming's body was scattered in pieces across the ground. He had truly suffered a massive loss of primordial qi inside inwardly. He had been too miserable lately, first exploding once in the blood forest, and now exploding again today. If he hadn't meticulously studied the body refinement harmonizing with the Tao scripture, his physical form would have surely shattered, leaving him no chance to reassemble himself. Lately, fighting blood battles against saints of other supreme systems. My trump cards aren't as effective as they used to be. I'm relying on just a few of them to hold me up. Qin Ming struggled to activate his adhesive force, drawing his severed limbs scattered across the area back together. Once I perfect my 4th realm and break through to the Grandmaster realm, I can fuse the Tathagata force, Jade Pure force, and 6 Imperial force. My attack power should increase significantly. He eagerly anticipated the 5th realm. Though it brought the true form Death Tribulation, it also presented an opportunity for his Chaos force to evolve and reach great completion. After his physical body had been stitched back together, Qin Ming picked up the gleaming purple sword made of exotic metal from the ground. It was only the length of a palm, but this flying sword alone more than compensated for all his losses today. Such a treasure couldn't be bought even with day gold. With a sword in his left hand and a blade in his right, both forged from exotic metal, one shimmering white and the other brilliant purple, he staggered toward his opponent. He first pierced his opponent's forehead, then unleashed a flurry of sword and blade strikes, weakening the enemy to their most vulnerable state. Only then did Qin Ming sit cross-legged to heal. Soon, his entire body was enveloped in golden threads, resembling an immortal chrysalis spinning its cocoon, or the light of transformation weaving a robe. Golden radiance shone brilliantly, and a rain of light steamed around him. Hundreds of thousands of li away, in the firmament, the dog sword immortal had just defeated the 7th realm traveler. He cursed furiously, "Old Lu made me guard the gate for 500 years, and I accepted it, I endured it. But you damn piece of shit. You dare talk about keeping me as a pet and making me a guard dog. I'll fucking kill you, you bastard." Immortal radiance surged and churned in the night sky. The dog sword immortal beheaded the 7th realm traveler and extracted the faint remnants of Xuanhuan qi from its body. Yet, even with a gloomy look on his canine face, he realized the gain barely compensated for the energy he had expended. It was hardly a worthwhile trade. After an unknown amount of time, Qin Ming's eyes snapped open. He sensed someone approaching and immediately went on high alert, but quickly relaxed when he realized it was Tang Yusheng. After recovering, Tang Yusheng had pursued him in this direction, leaving the yellow silk canopy umbrella behind to guard Yu Zhensheng. Tang Yusheng spotted Qin Ming and let out a sigh of relief when she saw he was unharmed. "How are you?" she asked with concern. Qin Ming replied, "My body shattered once, and I barely managed to take down my opponent. I need to rest and recover." Tang Yusheng's heart skipped a beat as she saw the Saint Traveler's remains pinned to the ground by golden threads. She marveled at how Qin Ming, even while severely weakened and depleted of vitality qi, had managed to defeat such a foe. Qin Ming's expression suddenly changed. "How is Senior Yu?" "No, I have to go back immediately to refine the chaos force in his body." After a moment's hesitation, Tang Yusheng lifted him onto her back. She then summoned a chain to bind the Saint Traveler's remains and began their journey back through the night mist. Her long, black hair brushed against Qin Ming's face, making it itch so much he almost sneezed. Though her figure was slender and graceful, with a delicate back and a narrow waist, she was strong enough to carry him. Tang Yusheng's fair, glowing neck was close by, and Qin Ming caught the refreshing, subtle scent of her fragrance. He calmed his mind, then activated the silk book technique to focus on healing. His body emitted a faint, pleasant fragrance as a vibrant life force began to revive. The Saint Traveler was undeniably powerful. After being impaled and sealed by Qin Ming, he had fallen unconscious, but now he was stirring again. In the next instant, he was simultaneously pierced by Qin Ming's golden threads and Tang Yusheng's immortal light. His consciousness plunged back into unconsciousness, once again. Soon, Tang Yusheng noticed something was wrong. Qin Ming's body had become as feverish as before, and the heat was transferring to her, flushing her face crimson. This intense masculine aura was overwhelming. The next moment, Qinming's world spun as Tang Yusheng grabbed him by the collar and began moving rapidly. Hey! Great Tang, you're really not treating me like an injured man, are you? Qinming protested. With her own graceful and slender figure, Tang Yusheng hurried along, carrying one person and dragging another on a chain. I'm using the night breeze to cool you down, she replied. Hurry up and heal. Qinming asked, Great Tang, do you feel any discomfort? Shut up. Tang Yusheng's face flushed. I just wanted to ask. When we fell together after being torn apart, did I accidentally set any of your broken bones the wrong way, or anything else? The next moment, Qinming was nearly thrown from the night sky. Returning to the site of the earlier battle, Qinming immediately began extracting the chaos force from Yu Zhensheng to start repairing his injuries. Fortunately, the longevity leaf was there, stabilizing old Yu's condition and preventing it from worsening. Tang Yusheng departed once more to search for Bai Meng and Pei Shuyan. A long while later, an utterly exhausted Qinming succeeded in saving the Grand Master, Yu Zhensheng. The old man had drifted into a peaceful slumber, his body slowly mending. In the distance, Bai Meng appeared and immediately shouted, Brother Ming. I heard you shattered too, and more than once. Are you missing any parts? He had been found by Tang Yusheng and was now returning, carrying the unconscious Pei Shuyan on his back. You little shit. Qinming wanted to drag his aching body forward and give Bai Meng a good thrashing. However, he first examined himself and confirmed that he was indeed intact. Brother Ming, take care of yourself. Bai Meng yelled, running over. Just as Qinming was about to scold him, he noticed Bai Meng was covered in blood, Pei Shuyan's blood. Brother Ming, quick, save Brother Pei. Bai Meng cried. I was carrying him away when he fell apart again. Luckily, I didn't lose any of his parts, but he was in such agony that he started pounding himself until he passed out. Half a day later, they set off. While searching for the ancient mist gate, they interrogated the Saint Traveler, subjecting him to rough handling and soul searching. Boom. A part of the Saint Traveler's body exploded. He opened his eyes, cold and silent. To prevent him from self-destructing, Qinming had already pierced him with 1,000 needles. Crack. During the soul search, the Saint Traveler's spiritual domain was partially shattered. The same bloody methods he had used on the Immortal Path Grandmasters and Pei Shuyan's senior brothers were now being inflicted upon him, one by one. Bai Meng shook the unconscious Pei Shuyan. Duke Pei, wake up. Your sworn enemy has fallen into our hands. Pei Shuyan opened his eyes, his consciousness slowly returning. After recovering his senses, he glared and asked, What? Did you just call me? Bai Meng replied, Don't get the wrong idea, didn't your family in the mortal realm hold the title of Duke? Damn it, isn't that the same character used for eunuch? Pei Shuyan felt stung and wanted to hit him. Then, Pei Shuyan glared viciously at the Saint Traveler and stepped forward, causing another part of the man's body to completely disintegrate. The Saint Traveler's eyes bulged, his fury reaching its peak. Don't kill him. Qinming interjected. He still needed to explore and extract the man's memories. Unfortunately, the core spiritual imprint was untouchable, a restriction guarded it, and any attempt to delve deeper would cause it to explode. Days later, they finally returned after passing through multiple mist gates. At this moment, all the major factions had gathered in heaven, their hearts heavy with anxiety. They didn't know if the Great War in the Outer Realm had ended, or if their own faction had emerged victorious. Now, all the top experts had converged to prepare for the potential aftermath. The two realms were too far apart, and no one was willing to return to the enclave, so contact had been temporarily severed. Everyone was waiting for news. Qinming and his group finally returned, not to heaven, but to Night Province. I hope for a period of peace, without any more bloody battles. 2 days later, a world-shaking surge of energy erupted from the massive chasm, rippling through the Jade Capital realm. The supreme blood battle has ended. Did we win, or are we about to face a reckoning at the hands of the forces from beyond the realm? Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 564, The Turbulent Storm Ends 5003 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Under the night sky, Kunling City was ablaze with lights. Within the Mountain and River Academy, Qinming's spiritual conch chimed incessantly. He was frequently exchanging messages with the outside world via flowing light birds. Uncle Meng, don't worry, I'm fine. It's wonderful to hear you've returned safely as well. Please take care of your health. Thank you for your kind words, Senior. I have just returned safely. My injuries have fully healed. I'm feeling stronger than ever. I feel like I could take down a 6-tusked white elephant with a single punch right now. Ah, a Dao companion. I'm still too young. Let me think about it for a while. Qinming was truly swamped. Ever since he set foot in Night Prefecture, countless people had been trying to contact him. Some were desperately anxious, genuinely concerned for his well-being, like Meng Xinghai and Ning Siqi. Even some grandmasters from the Path of Awakening, who had abandoned their physical bodies during the Enclave incident to save him via spiritual journey, were still worried about his safety. Moreover, there were those in the heavens who were also watching to see if he would return alive. In this otherworldly war, although Qin Ming couldn't be compared to one sort Yi Jian or Jing Jia Pai, his performance was still exceptionally brilliant. During the exchange with the totem civilization, he had single-handedly crushed a whole group of opponents. In many people's eyes, the only thing holding him back from the first tier was his cultivation level. Otherwise, he would likely be a saint-level figure. Especially after learning that he had started his cultivation late, only embarking on the Path of Awakening at 16, many held high expectations for him. As long as the awakening system didn't block his path to advancement, forcing him to wait until his hair turned gray before becoming a grandmaster, his future should be bright. Thank you for your concern, senior. I can feel it, the hard lamp's bottleneck is loosening. I'll keep pushing and strive to reach the fourth great realm as soon as possible. Qin Ming appeared spirited and full of drive, radiating an aura of youthful ambition. In truth, he was already being humble enough. His current goal was the fifth realm, true form, also known as the Grandmaster realm. For comparison, in the cultivation civilization, the fifth realm was called the nascent soul realm. At this moment, Qin Ming was not yet 22 years old. The Huang family is looking for a son-in-law and wants me to give it a try. Is the woman involved a legitimate daughter or a concubine's daughter? I'm still young and in my prime for vigorous advancement. I think I'll focus on striving for greater heights instead. Beyond the Lu family, where heavenly venerable Lu Heng resided, another old power above the nine heavens had finally set its sights on him, and this one seemed even more formidable. The Huang family might still have a living heavenly god slumbering in the Jade capital. Their foundation is truly terrifying, Qin Ming marveled. Yet, he thought to himself, it's not a heavenly god choosing a husband, so what does it have to do with me? Don't refuse outright. We should show appropriate respect to a heavenly god's family, right? Alright, I understand. If I go above the nine heavens again, I'll act according to the situation. Qin Ming discovered that after gaining a little fame, the complexities of interpersonal relationships descended upon him like a tidal wave. All sorts of situations and matters came knocking at his door. High above, the ancient powerhouses of the seventh realm breathed a collective sigh of relief. Feedback regarding the massive fluctuations at the Great Chasm had arrived. Fragments of the Dao ranking, the Golden ranking, and the New ranking were making their way back. At first, many had feared the worst. Fortunately, confirmed news arrived shortly after. Although the three rankings had been severely damaged and were on their way back, the Jade capital remained there and currently held the advantage. As a result, the originally tense atmosphere in heaven eased, and each faction began to consider the aftermath of the war. Qin Ming communicated with various parties and learned the fates of several acquaintances, a mix of good news and bad. Notably, Zhao Qingcheng, a prominent figure of the esoteric sect, had fallen in battle. Recalling the past, she had once been very close to Li Qingyu and Yao Ruoxian, walking side by side. Additionally, Zhou Qingming and Luo Jingxiao of the Immortal Path had also fallen in battle. The Path of Awakening had lost top-tier Anomalous and the young sect master, who would forever remain at the edge of the Blood Forest. These were just the people of his own generation that Qin Ming knew. As for other experts and famous figures he wasn't as familiar with or didn't know very well, there were many more. How could a great war not result in deaths? Bloody and extremely cruel, this was reality. From an observer's perspective, all of this seemed quite normal. But when it involved old acquaintances, all that remained was a heart full of sighs, and one could only exhale a heavy breath of turbid air. If a group of old acquaintances had to die in every otherworldly war and pioneering expedition, then the longer an expert lived and the stronger they became, the lonelier their life would gradually become in the end. In fact, the losses this time were still acceptable. This was mainly because everyone had initially been within the Xuanhuan realm of the gold ranking, fighting as a unified force against the external enemy. Had the situation devolved into chaotic, scattered skirmishes, the carnage would have been far worse, likely claiming the lives of over 80% of the participants. After all, this conflict involved a supreme blood battle. Even the ancient factions in heaven suffered significant losses. For instance, the heavenly god Ridge, renowned alongside Star Mountain and Thunder Marsh Palace, lost its core leadership, its Ridge Lord had even fallen in battle. This was why the Huang and Lu families, among others, sought to recruit sons-in-law immediately upon their return. They were desperate to replenish their ranks with fresh, boundless talent. Other great powers were also actively recruiting disciples. During this external campaign, the young and strong, One Sword, Yun Jianyu, Li Wanfa, and Wei Shuzhen, achieved glorious victories. Meanwhile, Qian Cheng, Li Xian, and Yin Tian rose to prominence overnight, transforming from nobodies into household names. Naturally, these figures now drew intense scrutiny, with various factions eyeing them with interest. Brother Ming, Senior Yu is awake, Bai Meng ran over to report. Outside the Blood Forest, the supreme battle had yet to conclude. The returning ancient powerhouses had gathered in heaven, huddling together for mutual protection. Tang Yusheng and Bai Meng had followed them to Night Prefecture, likewise refusing to venture out alone for fear of the unknown. On the way to visit Yu Zhensheng, Bai Meng asked in surprise, Brother Ming, your body is fully recovered. But why do I feel an even greater pressure coming from you? I'm fine, Qin Ming nodded. In truth, he was cultivating a special cultivation technique that delved into the forbidden domain, allowing him to absorb various spiritual essences and mystical substances from his surroundings. Because of this, Bai Meng felt as if he were facing an abyss when he drew near. Qin Ming immediately adjusted, returning to his ethereal and immortal state. Passing through the quiet bamboo forest, they arrived at the back of the mountain and saw the old man lying on the sickbed. Yu Zhensheng's face was pale. Besides missing both arms, other parts of his body were also damaged, such as his right lower leg. Only half of his heart remained, and only a small portion of his sternum and shoulder blades was left. Fortunately, he was a grandmaster. As long as he remained alive, his body would automatically regenerate as he recovered. Senior, you're awake. Qin Ming stepped forward, channeling heavenly light into him and once again using the golden threads with longevity properties to stitch and mend his injuries. I'm fine, Yu Zhensheng said weakly, a relieved smile appearing on his face. He felt it was all worth it to have fought the white-haired grandmaster to a bloody draw and ensured the safety of Qin Ming, Tang Yusheng, and the others. Then, his brows furrowed slightly as he asked, what about those students? Earlier, he had been with a group of students from the Mountain and River Academy, escorting them to safety. Later, worried about Qin Ming, he had entrusted them to Li Qingyan, who was traveling with them. Qin Ming reassured him, they are all safe. They encountered a group of experts on the immortal path, and word arrived not long ago that they have already entered Night Prefecture. That's good then, Yu Zhensheng breathed a sigh of relief. Tang Yusheng had also emerged from seclusion and come to the bamboo forest cottage to visit the Grand Master, who had fought desperately to protect them. Over the past 2 days, she had been studying the shackles within her body. She discovered that they were more than just a bloodline cage, they also contained an unimaginably mysterious energy. This time, on the brink of death, she had actually used this to achieve a nirvana. Tang Yusheng felt that if utilized well, this would not be a shackle hindering her path, but a mysterious source for her life level to sublimate, a great nirvana. By his bedside, she said, Senior, focus on recovering from your injuries. After surviving such a bloody catastrophe, you've escaped death by a hair's breadth. Perhaps you even have a chance to reach the Ancestor Realm. Yu Zhensheng shook his head. The Ancestor's threshold is difficult to break. The 6th realm, Hunyuan, is incredibly challenging. For many, it's too ethereal. Besides, in this special environment, an old man like me shouldn't dwell on such things. Tang Yusheng comforted him, in such a brutal great era, the geniuses of every path will be forced to blaze new trails and cultivate new techniques. Perhaps a special means of breaking through will emerge. Pei Shuyan arrived next. He could now walk on his own, no longer worrying that his arm might fall off or his foot might detach from his body at any moment. For the past 2 days, he had been recovering at the Mountain and River Academy, occasionally interrupting his traveler's journey to interrogate the saint travelers. Senior, you're finally awake. Jin Shang arrived as well. His true form was a golden sheep that had pulled carts in Kunling City for over 20 years, refining his heart in the mortal realm. Now, he had taken human form. One of the horns on his head was broken. He appeared to be in his prime, exuding a sense of steadiness and composure forged by time. Yu Zhensheng nodded. Good lad. Your will is truly formidable. You've always been able to quietly temper yourself. You're not far from becoming a grandmaster. Jin Shang had been an outstanding graduate representative of the Mountain and River Academy over 20 years ago. He was extraordinary, cultivating both the path of awakening and the esoteric path, and even daring to live as a beast of burden in the mortal realm to comprehend the heart scripture. He paid no heed to the world's judgment, unconcerned with honor or disgrace. Few could match such a state of mind. Senior brother Jin, congratulations, Qin Ming greeted him. When he and Xiao Wu first arrived in Kunling City, it was Jin Shang who had pulled them to the Mountain and River Academy. Jin Shang replied with a smile, you are destined to surpass us and blaze the trail ahead. Junior brother Qin, I will be waiting for you to guide me across the threshold. Pei Shuyan chuckled. Brother Jin, are you asking brother Qin to guide you to immortality? With your steady and reliable approach, you'll have no trouble with the other trials. Shortly after, they took their leave, leaving Yu Zhensheng to recover in peace. However, old Yu's ascension to Grandmaster had been forged in the fires of a death tribulation. Now that he had awakened, his life was destined to be anything but peaceful. Many would come to visit him. Qinming and Tang Yusheng returned to interrogate the Saint Traveler. Qinming felt he had extracted all the useful information he could. The man was now a liability, a ticking time bomb that needed to be eliminated. Unfortunately, the supreme inheritance of the Traveler civilization remained out of reach. Every attempt to explore it caused the flaxen-haired youth's spiritual imprint to crack. Nevertheless, Qinming's exploration of other areas yielded some rewards. He gained a deeper understanding of the Traveler civilization and acquired several fragmentary techniques, including the spiritual aspects manifestation of power, the flying immortal seal, and techniques to accelerate his cultivation. He felt he had gained a wealth of knowledge. For instance, the flying immortal seal was based on a fundamental scripture, which undoubtedly possessed the wondrous power to seize the heavens and earth, no less powerful than the inner vision heaven-opening axe. Qinming tried to activate it with his chaos force and felt that he could roughly unleash this kind of technique. This guy was truly ruthless. While roaming the world, he encountered a Taoist heir from an immortal cultivation lineage and enlisted a white-haired grandmaster to help him eliminate the rival. Indeed, roaming in the outside world was extremely dangerous. The Taoist heir of that immortal cultivation system had a cultivation level even higher than the Saint Travelers, and he was very young, only in his early 30s. As a result, he was suppressed by the white-haired grandmaster and killed by the Saint Traveler. His flying immortal seal and that purple glowing flying sword, forged from pure strange metal, both became the enemy's resources. The Taoist heir's fate was truly tragic. His future path should have been smooth and radiant with glory. His cultivation was even higher than the Saint Traveler's. Qinming was quite shocked. The night mist world was too vast. In the dark realm, there were many unknown civilizations and peerless heavenly prides. At first, Qinming thought that Taoist heir belonged to a cultivation civilization. However, after carefully examining the Saint Traveler's memories, he discovered that was not the case. This system doesn't involve forming a nascent soul, instead, it follows the path of the golden core. Once the golden core is forged, it becomes solid and indestructible, signifying the attainment of the Tao. Concepts like shattering the core to birth a nascent soul simply did not exist here. Even Tang Yusheng felt a sense of longing, whispering, the diversity of systems in the distant reaches, the brilliance of the fire of civilization. It truly stirs the heart. Qinming said, this traveler civilization is also no simple matter. When it rose in ancient times, it was just a single family, yet it eventually developed into a supreme Tao lineage. Most crucially, they are researching immortality and have even achieved some peculiar results. They actually intend to feed blood food to the undying blood calamity. This was utterly absurd and dangerous. A supreme system in the distant reaches was researching the undying blood calamity. The Saint Traveler said miserably, give me a quick death. He knew his value had been squeezed dry. It was time to go. Unfortunately, he had been crippled, and those fine golden threads had pierced his body and spirit, preventing him from even initiating self-detonation. Pei Shuyan's eyes reddened as he said, you wish. You slaughtered the Grandmaster of my immortal path, massacred my senior brothers and junior sisters, and now you want a quick death. I'm going to use every single one of your own methods on you. Afterward, the scene became Pei Shuyan's domain. The once elegant and poised man had transformed into an avenger, unleashing every method at his disposal, splitting the Saint Traveler vertically, soul-searching, and severing the spiritual domain. Qinming, Tang Yusheng, and Bai Meng had already left the scene and were strolling through the mountain and river academy. Having fully recovered his peak state, Qinming's spiritual perception was razor-sharp. Sensing something amiss, he looked at Tang Yusheng and remarked, huh? Why do I sense the aura of my own flesh and blood on you? Hearing this, Bai Meng was stunned. What's going on? His eyes went wide as he blurted out, sis. Are you carrying Brother Ming's flesh and blood offspring, Brother Ming's child? Immediately, he was subjected to a double team beating. There was a vast difference between flesh and blood aura and flesh and blood offspring. Howling in pain, Bai Meng desperately cried out to save himself, is it possible I'm telling the truth? You two shattered, and your broken bodies and blood overlapped. Did my sister accidentally conceive? Qinming stopped his attack, but Tang Yusheng struck even harder. She believed he needed to be taught a lesson, to understand that some things should not be joked about lightly, or he'd be beaten to death. The truth was that when they were scattered together, Tang Yusheng had intercepted a drop of Qinming's true blood. After studying it for several days, she discovered that the drop of blood possessed terrifyingly strong vitality. Within her body, it glowed like a golden core, radiating brilliant light. Returning this to you. After she finished dealing with Bai Meng, she returned the blood to its original owner. Qin Ming watched her and asked, "You placed yourself in a desperate situation to seek survival, and actually achieved nirvana." Tang Yusheng nodded reservedly, regaining the cold and elegant aura of a celestial maiden. With a haughty, proud tilt of her snow-white chin, her formidable self-confidence returned. She mused that if she continued to undergo nirvana, she might eventually be able to suppress Qin Ming. She could then win a decisive battle. Her last crushing defeat and the beating she took had nearly infuriated her to death. Given enough time, she would surely surpass Qin Ming in the future and be able to hold the upper hand. Thus, as she fantasized about the future, she couldn't help but lift her chin. At the thought of those scenes where she stood above him, her mood improved greatly. Even her cold and aloof temperament thawed, becoming momentarily bright and warm, making others feel as if they were basking in a spring breeze. Qin Ming asked her, "When can you get that jade mirror back?" Tang Yusheng snapped out of her daze, instantly becoming extremely vigilant. Qin Ming said, "My life-saving marvelous treasure, the decaying fan, shattered. I need to head to the otherworld to handle some private matters soon, but I feel a bit anxious traveling without a sect-protecting weapon in hand." Tang Yusheng asked in surprise, "What are you going to the otherworld for?" "I want to pull off a big deal. If you help out, I'll give you a cut of the profits." Great Tang's spirits immediately lifted. She knew Qin Ming was incredibly resourceful, and his big deals were never simple, they almost always turned a massive profit. "I'll be heading to the heavens to retrieve the jade mirror within the next 2 days. Let me consider it." Qin Ming immediately nodded. "Good. Together, we can achieve great things." "What about me?" Bai Meng asked instantly. Qin Ming replied, "Your realm is too low. Stay behind and guard the house." Obviously, Xiaobai was being left out. It was mainly because of that mouth of his. Lately, Qin Ming had been tempted to beat him. Every time he got a thrashing, he deserved it. Outside, the world was abuzz with discussion. The ancient monsters of the seventh realm were distant figures, like heavenly dragons soaring high above the clouds, known to the masses only through hearsay, far beyond the reach of close observation. Holy shit, Zhou Kun, that old man is terrifying. If the surging Tao resonance were to settle, like a torrential downpour finally ceasing, he'll surely become a heavenly god. The sage from Pu Gong displayed peerless divine might. His chaos force swept everything away, crushing the totem and multiple heavenly clan giants. It was truly breathtaking. Naturally, the most heated discussions centered on those nearby, rather than the distant figures, such as the Seven Convergence Realm, and other peerless powerhouses, who were far out of reach. Yun Jianyu solidified her position as the top core saint. Her brilliant track record, which included slaying an Abyss King, was now public knowledge. Li Wanfa, who had once killed one of the 7 heroes of the Heavenly Clan, naturally drew immense attention now that his full capabilities had been revealed. As a result, the Chaos Force was also brought up, elevated to a completely new level of prestige. I knew it, among those young saint-level prodigies, there were likely some who had already stepped into the realm of Grandmasters. Previously, people only speculated. Now, these actual battle records undoubtedly confirmed certain rumors. Most shocking of all was the sudden rise of previously obscure figures like Qian Cheng and Yin Tian, which caused a massive sensation. Naturally, many of the top great powers sought to get close to this background-less newcomer, hoping to bind him through marriage or by taking him as a disciple. However, within the 9-colored ice mountain, certain ancient monsters warned their descendants against provoking such individuals, hinting that they might be involved in a state bordering on the forbidden domain. What? A Dharma king? Hiss, never mind. Wei Shuzhen had displayed his might in the enclave and was now fully recognized by the Huang family. He might even be betrothed to their eldest daughter, who held a very high status. One sword, Jing Jia Pai, truly worthy of the top rank's reputation. Absolutely incredible. He once suppressed Taoist Dai and slew the Divine I King. Terrifying, his battle achievements are dazzling. These experts from the younger generation felt more tangible and real, unlike the ancient monsters of the seventh realm, who seemed like castles in the air, far too ethereal and distant. Taiyi and Qin Ming both have the potential to become core saints in the future. They've already suppressed the younger generation of the totem faction into submission. It's just a pity their cultivation realms are still a bit lacking. By the way, has anyone figured out who One Sword Yi Jian and Jing Jia Pai really are? Forget it. If we really dug to the bottom of this, it might scare us to death. I heard that Qian Cheng is just like that. Even those ancient earth immortal monsters in the heaven had to back off. Clearly, there are no airtight secrets in this world. Once a thing is known to 1 or 2 people, it ceases to be a secret. As for Qian Cheng, he had quickly vanished from the public eye. At Mountain and River Academy, Bai Meng exclaimed in amazement, "Brother Ming is truly incredible. Out of all the figures being hotly discussed in the outside world, 4 of them are actually him." If the truth were ever revealed, it would undoubtedly cause an explosive sensation. Bai Meng felt that the day was not far off. As Qin Ming stepped into the Grandmaster realm and various factions continued their deep investigations, some things would inevitably come to light. Hiss. I was afflicted by Brother Ming's scorching great medicine. Theoretically, after so many days, its effects should have long since worn off. Why do I find the elephant tribe so elegant and graceful now? Over the past 2 days, Bai Meng had been sitting on some of the main thoroughfares of Mountain and River Academy, watching the unusual students pass by, such as the white jade elephant and the golden-haired spirit elephant, and feeling an unprecedented sense of kinship with them. Could it be that my curse is loosening? Is there a chance I can recover my divine elephant body? Bai Meng was instantly thrilled. Just as he turned around, he saw Pei Shuyan walking over and quickly greeted him. Old Pei, come over here. I invite you to admire these lush and beautiful sights with me. Pei Shuyan approached, his expression as still as an ancient well. It was difficult to empathize with him. Look, Bai Meng said, how graceful that white elephant is. Even I can't help but admire its beauty. Pei Shuyan shook his head. It's just large and strong. Bai Meng slapped his own forehead. Right, I forgot you're human. Then look over there, that woman is as elegant as a willow, her eyes bright and her teeth like pearls, gentle as jade. Ah, it seems she's looking for Brother Ming. He's certainly popular. At that moment, Qin Ming was greeting old acquaintances like Xin Yudao, Lu Hanaya, and Luo Lianqing, all top students from the various academies in Kunling. Time had passed, and the group felt a profound sense of change. They had always known Qin Ming would rise to prominence, but they never expected him to become famous across heaven and earth so quickly. Pei Shuyan shook his head. I feel nothing. Bai Meng said sympathetically, then what do you think of a peerless beauty like my sister? Though she has skin like ice and bones like jade, a beauty that could topple cities and nations. I'm fucking still as calm as an ancient well, Pei Shuyan said, his own voice trembling by the end. Could a physical deficiency really affect one's state of mind? Bai Meng slapped his shoulder. Duke Pei, you've succeeded. Pei Shuyan turned his head and looked at him. Succeeded in what? Bai Meng said, your Dao heart is now as solid as a mountain, unswaying and immovable. You can resist any temptation, and no one can influence your will. From this point on, your path of cultivation will be smooth and unobstructed, undisturbed by any external matters. Pei Shuyan pondered for a moment before nodding solemnly. You know what? Right now, all I want is to become stronger. Divine maidens and stunning fairies are nothing more than passing clouds to me. Even that feeling of falling in love at first sight in my youth, thinking it was an unforgettable lifelong bond, has faded into a blurry bubble. It seems I don't need to rush to find a senior on the immortal path to help me restore my body. I'll cultivate to the Grandmaster realm first. Bai Meng replied, yes, that's the spirit. Late at night, Qin Ming was in secluded meditation in the small courtyard by the lake at the Mountain and River Academy, which had once belonged to him. He was cultivating the terrifying, true technique. At this moment, he was like a black hole, about to devour everything. It seems that having my body shatter and be repeatedly refined, though I endured life and death tribulations, was not without its benefits. Qin Ming himself was astounded. He had finally mastered the devouring essence of the chaos force. In truth, he had developed this ability long ago, but it was merely at an initial level. Back at the Mountain and River Academy, during his battle with Sun Chengjun of the lineage of sages, he had devoured the opponent's heavenly light force. At that time, he was far from proficient. Now, the difference was night and day. Without a doubt, this was a peerless mystical technique. He had nearly mastered the lineage of sages, strongest protective Dao technique. Qin Ming was immensely satisfied. This achievement brought him even more joy than acquiring a top-tier precious medicine herbs or a true scripture. He had gained an utterly terrifying new offensive technique. It seems that careful cultivation brings immense benefits. I must remain calm and focused. The various hidden attributes of the chaos force are revealing themselves to me, one by one. A decisive victory. The jade capital Dao resonance poured forth like 10,000 rivers of stars falling from the 9 heavens, finally crushing that colossal entity, the undying blood calamity, into oblivion. The next day, a piece of news that shocked the world broke, triggering a tidal wave of fervent discussion. The people, who had been holding their breath in anxiety, finally felt their hearts settle. If the jade capital had fallen, it would have undoubtedly brought about total annihilation. Now, however, the tide had turned. Tang Yusheng prepared to ascend to the 9 heavens. I'm going up to retrieve the jade mirror, she said. Are you coming? In fact, Qin Ming had also received an invitation. The Jade Capital's great victory was to be celebrated across the realm, with a grand assembly of the great powers gathering in heaven. Yes, they might offer extra rewards to those who contributed, Pei Shuyan said, his spirits lifting. He had sacrificed much in the brutal battle against the otherworldly enemy and truly wanted to ascend to see if there were any additional reparations. Bai Meng added, Brother Ming, you've been specifically named, your attendance is mandatory. Then let's go together. Qin Ming ultimately decided to accompany them. That same day, he arrived once more at the Sky City. The resplendent and massive immortal city sat nestled within the sea of night mist, offering a breathtaking view of the mortal world below. Su Mohua, Qin Ming's nominal disciple, appeared immediately to greet him, whispering, Master. Actually, this event might turn out to be a matchmaking gathering. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 565, Affection 2 chapters combined. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Matchmaking. Qin Ming was startled, feeling as if he had accidentally stumbled into the mortal realm. But he quickly understood and nodded. The recent war had left all factions heavily damaged. Whether it was the ancient factions high above the nine heavens or the transcendent great powers entrenched on the land, everyone was seizing the opportunity to scout for hidden dragons and immortal seedlings. Arranging marriages or taking on disciples was naturally the most effective and secure way to do so. Su Mohua, with her painting-like features and raven black hair cascading down her waist, shone with a lustrous sheen. She giggled and said, Master, you've attracted the attention of quite a few major clans. Recently, several renowned fairy maidens have even made subtle inquiries about you. Qin Ming beamed with confidence. I know I'm handsome, but I didn't expect to be this popular. Su Mohua didn't know how to respond. Master, shouldn't you be a little more humble? She thought. Behind them, Bai Meng was surprised to find Brother Ming so narcissistic. But he soon realized it was just Qin Ming poking fun at himself. What a thick skin. Tang Yusheng, walking at the very back, tilted her chin up and commented. Qin Ming asked, Mohua, did you run into any trouble while in the enclave? Su Mohua's face turned pale, and a wave of lingering fear washed over her. During this expedition, she had been snatched by a black flame bird of the heavenly clan, which had shredded her shoulder and nearly carried her away. Fortunately, a Grand Master had rescued her. As they spoke, they entered the bustling district of Sky City. High above, a silver disk hung in the sky, casting a brilliant moonlight. It was a high-grade moon insect. In the lower sky, countless, fire insects, drifted, shimmering like a sky full of stars. The night in Sky City was magnificent and far from silent. The streets were still teeming with carriages and horses, and the jade towers and silver palaces were all brightly lit, bathed in the moonlight. It was a time of revelry and nightlife. Su Mohua said, Sigh, Master, if you weren't my master. Bai Meng immediately perked up. What would happen? The fire of gossip burned fiercely in his heart. Sure enough, every beating is worth it, he thought. This was his true nature, but after being pummeled by Qin Ming at the Great Thunder Temple, he had been somewhat traumatized and kept a low profile for a while. However, as their relationship grew closer, he had fully recovered and was now letting himself go again. Su Mohua felt a bit embarrassed. Originally, our Su family also wanted to choose a son-in-law. I knew it. Bai Meng slapped his thigh so hard it nearly bruised, his excitement palpable from the juicy gossip. Then, his head swelled. Tang Yusheng had smacked the back of his head 3 times in quick succession. Su Mohua said, Originally, my family wanted me to be the one to marry. But unfortunately, you're my master, so that wouldn't be right. Huh. Bai Meng felt like he'd just bitten into a rotten piece of gossip and was utterly disappointed. By now, they were very close to Su Manor. The Su family wanted to host Qin Ming and had invited their entire party to stay. Su Moran was waiting nearby, ready to welcome them. Yao Chan, who had received advance notice, had followed along like a shadow. Clearly, Su Moran had overheard the conversation. Her expression froze. Yao Chan's ear twitched, and his face darkened instantly. In the Sky City, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, the Su family's manor was immense. It wasn't just filled with pavilions and palaces, it even housed several immortal peaks shrouded in mist. However, the manor employed a fragmentary cave heaven technique, making it appear far smaller from the outside than it actually was. Mohua, don't say such reckless things, Yao Chan said. His left sleeve hung empty and limp. He had suffered a severe injury in the enclave, losing a section of his arm. The atmosphere grew awkward. Qin Ming politely declined the offer and ultimately decided not to stay at Su Manor. Once they had moved a short distance away, Bai Meng asked, Old Pei, you're too calm about this. Pei Shuyan regretted ascending to heaven. What did this so-called matchmaking event have to do with him? He had no desires or attachments, feeling like the only sober man in a world of drunks. Finally, he couldn't help but comment, the world is truly vulgar. Qin Ming and Bai Meng exchanged a speechless glance. At this rate, Old Pei was on the path to becoming a saint in the mortal realm. Is this for real? Tang Yushang's cold and elegant celestial maiden persona nearly cracked. She couldn't resist shooting old Pei a few side glances. Shortly after, Qinming exclaimed in shock, "Hiss, great Tang, are you a rich woman? You even have property in heaven. What nonsense." Tang Yushang rolled her eyes, showing only the whites, hiding the dark, spiritually vibrant pupils. "Sister, does Taishu have a residence in heaven?" Bai Meng was also stunned. Even he hadn't known. Tang Yushang explained, it was purchased long ago. It was only when the ancestor ascended to heaven recently that the formation was reactivated and the garden was cleaned up. What was true heritage? This was it, owning property in heaven. Qinming sighed. The descendants of the Lord of Jade capital resided in Taishu, their foundation was indeed terrifyingly deep. Is the ancestor here too? Bai Meng asked, a hint of tension in his voice. Yes, Tang Yushang nodded. Instantly, Qinming and Pei Shuyan stiffened. They quickly made their excuses to leave, truly unwilling to stay overnight under an Earth Immortal's watchful eye. Even Bai Meng joined them in, running away from home, deciding to follow Qinming for a stroll through the city. Last time, they had been training in the barren forest outside the bustling urban district. Although they had entered the city then, they had never truly explored this world-renowned immortal city. Tonight, they walked under the moonlight. This heavenly immortal city is so mortal, Qinming remarked. In their previous understanding, an immortal city, transcending the earth and suspended high above the world, should have been ethereal, otherworldly, and shrouded in mist. It should have been a place of serene detachment, enveloped in the spiritual essence of the immortal clan. The reality, however, was a city where lights shone as bright as day. In the prosperous districts, silver towers stood tall and jade palaces lined the streets in neat rows. Crowds flowed like a river, and the atmosphere was exceptionally lively. Though they had sensed this before, tonight's thorough exploration had deepened their realization. Above many areas in the city, painted barges floated and swayed in the sky, their hulls shimmering with colorful lights. Meanwhile, the many towering heavenly palaces on the ground were filled with the sounds of music and singing, a true city that never slept, drowning in golden extravagance. Bai Meng said with deep emotion, "I want to have a home here." He saw a six-tusked white elephant carrying a female bodhisattva-like figure as it strolled through the night sky, entering a magnificent golden giant palace. Qinming glanced at him and asked, "Do you want to become that six-tusked white elephant?" Bai Meng shook his head firmly. "No, I want to be the male bodhisattva." Pei Shuyan sighed, his eyes tinged with melancholy. Bai Meng quickly added, "Old Pei, it's such a festive night. Don't act like you're trying to achieve sainthood in the mortal realm. You misunderstand." Pei Shuyan shook his head. He gazed into the distance, his heart heavy. Without realizing it, he had lost another companion. He thought of his friend, Zhou Qingming, who had failed to return alive. Only a few days ago, during their last training break, they had visited this city together. Now, everything had changed. He muttered to himself, "This is the cruel immortal Tao. We all walk this rugged, perilous path, our fates fraught with misfortune." He silently counted and listed the names. In just the last few years, not to mention the ordinary disciples, many of the renowned immortal seeds had already fallen. Su Xian, and Yuxing, Shui Yunzhang, Luo Jingxiao, Zhou Qingming. It was truly a staggering number. If this continued, their entire generation would be harvested like leeks. Qinming patted his shoulder and said, "Cheer up. If you're counting like that, I've seen even more people die on the path of awakening." For a moment, many faces flashed through his mind. After several years, some had already blurred, like Zhou Ya, the anomalous woman he'd met early on, always cheerful and full of laughter. Qinming exhaled a long breath of turbid air. The path of cultivation is haunted by wandering spirits. Looking at the past to understand the present, it has always been this way. Bai Meng also offered comfort. "Old Pei, there's no need to dwell on the past. This is reality. Some people are just meant to walk a part of the journey with us, that's fate. Cherish the present." Pei Shuyan nodded. It was the truth. Many brilliant geniuses initially soared like chosen ones in the sky, only to fade instantly, proving to be nothing more than meteors briefly streaking across the night sky. He murmured calmly, "Immortality, true longevity, is something no one can achieve. We are all meteors, or perhaps even less, mere candle flames." A moment later, the three men's expressions turned solemn. They were currently inside a magnificent heavenly palace. Sweeping away their slightly gloomy mood, they decided to follow the local customs and try their luck at the Immortal Clan's casino. It had a rather pleasant name, the God of Wealth Workshop. "I regret it. Gamblers never die a good death." Bai Meng wanted to slap himself across the face. In his quest for new experiences, he'd indulged in a little gambling for pleasure, and had already lost over 1,000 day gold. This time, Pei Shuyan didn't find the world vulgar. Duke Pei still liked day gold, it was the resources for his cultivation, though he had lost quite a lot of it. Here, immortal maiden-like figures accompanied them, decadent music lingered in the air, and fine wine was served freely. But this immortal clan casino was a real trap. Qinming sighed and was forced to use his ultimate move. He directly resonated. Though the various dice and gambling tools blocked divine sense probes, they couldn't block the human heart. Bai Meng immediately perked up. He saw Brother Ming start to slaughter the competition and exclaimed in admiration, as expected, someone who excels in one domain can also rise to the top in another domain. Brother Ming is a god. The woman beside them, her eyes shimmering and her curves exaggerated, said in a gentle voice, Young Master Qin, you truly possess the body of the god of wealth. Your luck tonight is soaring. Would you like to try your hand in the inner hall? Bai Meng was eager to go, wanting to see what the rumored inner hall looked like. It was said that noble ladies waited there, and even grandmaster-level figures and ancient monsters from higher realms appeared. Qinming shook his head and said, Forget it. Gambling is a great taboo on the path of cultivation. We're just experiencing it slightly, we can't take it seriously or get too deeply involved. He had already won 27,000 day gold coins. Leaving now would be no problem. If he continued his winning streak, he might run into trouble. Tonight, they were here to experience Sky City's nightlife, not to truly indulge in gambling. Throughout the evening, the three of them frequently ran into acquaintances, most of whom were cultivators from the surface world. They were all touring the Sky City's various scenic spots and experiencing its unique customs. Next round's on me, Qinming said with a wave of his hand, leading the other two out of the God of Wealth workshop. Following the advice of a local, they arrived at a relatively quiet, renowned tower. It was said to offer the finest wines of all kinds, each considered the best in its category. Even from a distance, the aroma of wine from the Jade Tower wafted toward them, refreshing and intoxicating, making one feel as if they were floating in the heavens. The tower produced the best wine, but it had one drawback: it was exorbitantly expensive, which kept its business from booming. Qinming and his companions ascended the tower, where they could gaze out at the city's night view. The bright moon, the starry sky, and the painted barges floating in the air intertwined with the jade towers and pavilions, creating a truly dreamlike scene. Brother Cheng. They spotted an acquaintance here. It was Cheng Sheng, a prominent figure of the esoteric sect. He was completely drunk and looked utterly dejected, a far cry from his usual spirited and imposing demeanor. Qinming and Pei Shuyan immediately moved their table to join him. All three of them realized that this divine seed of the esoteric sect had suffered some kind of hardship, otherwise he wouldn't be so despondent. Cheng Sheng nodded at them and said, You're here. Don't mind me. Tonight, I just want to get drunk. Qinming ordered the wine. Boss, 4 cups of ascension to immortality. Bai Meng's eyes widened. Brother Ming, is this the ultimate wine that costs 1,000 day gold per cup? Although he could afford it, he didn't care for alcohol and couldn't distinguish between good and bad wine. There was simply no need for such luxury. When life goes well, one should enjoy it to the fullest. Tonight is all about the experience. Just try it, Qinming said. After all, the day gold he was spending belonged to the God of Wealth workshop, a windfall he didn't mind spending at all. Bai Meng immediately praised, following Brother Ming, you eat 9 meals a day. Cheng Sheng sighed, when life goes well. Sigh, what about those whose lives are going poorly? Qinming said, that's why I want you to balance things out. Some things are better left behind after a good drink. Pei Shuyan asked, what's wrong? He was no longer swayed by beauty, but that didn't mean he lacked normal emotional fluctuations. He still cared deeply for his friends and those around him, which was why he still mourned his late friend, Zhou Qingming. Soon, 4 cups of fine wine, shimmering with a golden rain, were brought to the table. It looked as if crushed gold had been piled high, or as if the entire starry sky had fallen into a single, exquisite jade cup. As for the food, there was no need to order. A feast of rare delicacies was complimentary with the purchase of the wine. Clink. The 4 men raised their cups. As the wine touched their lips, it felt as if they were ascending to immortality, enveloped in a golden mist, floating away into the light. The wine truly lived up to its name, ascension to immortality. Cheng Sheng set down his cup, his face clouded with melancholy. Qingcheng. She died in battle, he said, his voice thick with regret. I hate that I wasn't there. I couldn't save her. Pei Shuyan looked surprised. I never heard that you two were a couple. Cheng Sheng's expression grew desolate. She was perfect. I felt I wasn't strong enough, good enough for her. I planned to wait until I became a grandmaster before confessing my feelings. I never imagined I'd hear the news of her death before I even had the chance to speak. This is my greatest regret in this life. Qinming patted his shoulder, not knowing how to offer comfort. His thoughts drifted back to when Li Qingyu wanted to travel far away, unable to predict the road ahead or if she would ever return. He had even tried to matchmake Cheng Sheng with Zhao Qingcheng. Qinming quickly shook his head. He must not speak the truth under the influence of alcohol and further provoke Cheng Sheng. He knew Zhao Qingcheng was a good girl. Unfortunately, as a prominent figurehead of the esoteric sect, her future had been brilliant, yet she died young in the end. Pei Shuyan said, life is fleeting. Even in Earth immortal lives at most 1500 years. Brother Cheng, let it go. Many beautiful things will fade in the mottled passage of time. Cheng Sheng looked up and asked, Old Pei, why do you seem so unruffled? I heard you once had an obsession, too. Why are you as calm as still water now? Without even looking up, Pei Shuyan took a sip of the ascension to immortality wine and said, I simply cut it away. How do you cut it away? Cheng Sheng asked earnestly. Pei Shuyan remained silent, as if lost in remembrance of the past. I heard you were once fond of one of your junior sisters, but, cough. Cheng Sheng coughed, glancing at Qin Ming with embarrassment. Pei Shuyan replied calmly, it's all right. It's in the past. Besides, Brother Qin understands my intentions and knows my heart, there's no need for any misunderstandings. His voice was devoid of emotion. Junior sister Qingyu is a wonderful person, as bright as the moon hanging high in the sky, untainted by the mortal world. She always felt distant, not like a flesh and blood mortal. How should I put it? She was too ethereal. So, let her drift away with the wind. He added, of course, her gaze never fell on me, it was always fixed on Brother Qin. Cheng Sheng asked, what about Fairy Su? Bai Meng immediately chimed in, Old Pei, so you were multitasking all along. Now. It's no wonder. Pei Shuyan shook his head. Su Xian's talent and grace were only a step or two behind Zhong Ran's. It's a great pity she died on the western border battlefield, at the Divine Lament Plains. However, her figure has long since faded from my heart. We never even started, I only ever admired her from afar. How could I feel sorrow? The impression has simply faded. Cheng Sheng's respect deepened. He knew it took immense willpower and determination to completely erase someone's shadow from one's heart. He asked solemnly, is there a secret technique for the mind? Please teach me, Brother Pei. I also wish to draw the sword of wisdom to cut off the past. A moment later, Cheng Sheng spat out a mouthful of fine wine. You really cut it off. After the great victory in the war against otherworldly forces, this celebration, shared by all under heaven, could not truly be called a matchmaking convention. In truth, it was primarily a gathering for the great powers to meet and discuss the future. For the Dao ranking, Gold ranking, and New ranking were all about to fall dormant. Holy crap, this is a world-shaking news. Those who perform exceptionally well in the future will have a great chance to enter the Jade Capital. This is a supreme divine decree. Word of this news began to spread far and wide. At this moment, even the so-called saints had never entered that mysterious, inverted giant city. Now, finally, there was some definite news. Was the Jade Capital about to emerge into the world? As far as I know, the Heavenly Clan's Sky City and the Abyss Civilization's Ancestral Abyss are all like this, isolated from the world, hanging inverted beyond the heavens. Their saints have never entered such forbidden lands either. Legend has it that only a few outstanding individuals can enter the overhanging Supreme Dao domain in the end. So, it seems the Night Mist world is the same everywhere. We can only say that our level is still not high enough, and we are far from being able to touch the highest land. Everyone was pondering, if Supreme Dao domains like the Sky City, Ancestral Abyss, Great Thunder Temple, and Eight Sceneries Palace truly emerged into the world, would they deliver a dimensionality-reducing strike against the current era? If any beings truly walked out of those mysterious lands, the consequences would likely be unimaginable. Would the transcendent great powers and peerless geniuses of the current era be completely overshadowed? Clearly, this grand gathering wouldn't openly call itself a matchmaking event. Instead, it was designed to create opportunities for the various families and their young generations to forge connections. In truth, the primary purpose was for the old monsters to discuss major affairs. Before the official festivities began, the quartet of Qin Ming, Bai Meng, Pei Shuyan, and Cheng Sheng spent 2 days exploring the entire immortal city. Their figures were seen at the God of Wealth workshop and on the painted barges drifting through the night sky. When Tang Yusheng learned they had boarded a massive cruise ship amidst the brilliant stars, she appeared and gave Bai Meng a thorough thrashing. Even Qin Ming and the others felt her killing intent. Bai Meng cried out in protest, Sister, you want to beat up Brother Ming, don't you? Go hit him. Then Qin Ming joined in and thrashed Bai Meng as well. The group also visited the gladiator arena, where they witnessed its brutal reality. The immortal city, floating high above the 9 heavens, possessed such a bloody side, every match was a fight to the death, accompanied by the spray of shattered bones and spiritual blood. Meanwhile, various rumors were already spreading through Sky City. The arrival of several eldest daughters from the Huang family, the most transcendent figures in the clan, caused an immediate sensation. After all, there was a common saying, if you seek a wife, marry a daughter of the Huang family. Setting aside other matters, just this one point alone hinted at the truth. They might still have a living heavenly god slumbering within the Jade capital. One sword, Qian Cheng, Yin Tian, Jing Jia Pai, Wei Shuzhen. They should be in the first tier. The eldest daughters of the Huang family were also discussing these figures. Qinming has immense potential, but for now, his cultivation level is still a bit low. I wonder if he can catch up. He is said to be primarily cultivating the path of awakening and secondarily the immortal path. Is that even plausible? I fear he might waste decades of time and still fail to break through the Grandmaster bottleneck. There are no walls that don't have ears. Some of these conversations and discussions spread within a small circle. Even the Lu family, a heavenly venerable clan, heard about it. Someone within the family remarked, the Huang family only has a few eldest daughters who meet the highest standards, those worthy of a saint. Now, they are preparing to arrange a quasi-eldest daughter for a second-tier candidate. Clearly, being called an eldest daughter of the Huang family required more than just exceptional beauty, it also demanded extraordinary cultivation. Otherwise, how could they be worthy of the most top-tier geniuses? Lu Jingli, an eldest daughter of the Lu family, had a subtle expression on her face. She said, if the Huang family isn't using their eldest daughters to win him over, yet our family is asking me to approach the Qinming. If word gets out, wouldn't it make us look inferior? After 2 consecutive days of sightseeing, the novelty had worn off for Qinming and his companions. Feeling mentally exhausted, they finally checked into an inn that boasted both a blessed land and a garden. Who's there? Qinming snapped his head up, startled. He had just finished checking in and stepped into the courtyard, a place of mountains and streams, when he felt someone press close behind him. Turning instantly, he saw a silver-haired elder grinning at him. It was the same old man who had asked him if he wanted to skip 500 years of struggle. Qinming didn't know the man's identity, nor did he realize he was an Earth Immortal ancestor from Taishu. Greetings, senior. He immediately bowed. The silver-haired elder smiled warmly. Have you considered my offer? Let's decide today. Just then, Qinming saw a woman of stunning beauty descend, enveloped in the shimmering light of a flying immortal. Her deep, mesmerizing eyes held an air of youthful grace and captivating charm, yet he could sense she was also an Earth Immortal. Qinming's heart hammered in his chest, unable to find peace. She's here, she's actually here. The 500 years senior, who can help me skip 5 centuries of struggle, a 7th realm immortal sister. He questioned his own worth. What merit could he possibly have to be so highly favored? Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.